Councillor Kelly. Here. Councillor Kitt. Here. Apologies, Councillors Leddy and Maguire. Councillor McCamley. Here. Apologies, Councillor McDonough. Councillor Mulligan. Here. Councillor Mulville. Sure. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Newman. Here. Councillor O'Brien. Sure. Councillor O'Leary.
Here.
Councillor Onyemera. Here. Councillor Quinlan. Sure. Councillor Quinn. Sure. Councillor Redwood. Here. Apologies, Councillors Ryan and Sheehan. Councillor Chauvelin. Here. Councillor Smith. Here. Councillor Tormey. Councillor Troy. Here. Councillor Walsh.
Okay, thank you. Just go into the notice now. All mobile phones should be on silent or switched off for the duration of the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being webcast. All members, please remember to switch off your microphone when you finish speaking. All members are reminded that the Chamber is a non-smoking vaping area. Standing orders will apply to all aspects of the meeting. Councillors are reminded of the provisions of Standing Order number 92 that all members are bound to act in accordance with the ethics framework and code of conduct. For local authority members to cooperate with the orderly conduct of meetings and the direction of the Mayor and in a manner that is respectful of colleagues, members have been circulated with the agenda for today's meeting, and any member forming the view that they have a conflict of interest in the matters of subject to today's agenda should now disclose same. Councillors are also reminded of the provisions of Standing Order number 93 that members must bear in mind that discussions at council meetings are not privileged. No member may make false statements, impute improper motives or use offensive or unbecoming words in reference to any member of the council, employee of the council or any other person. Any member having made such statements or used such objectionable words and not explaining or retracting same or offering apologies for the use thereof when requested by the Mayor to do so shall be called upon by the Mayor to withdraw from the meeting. Members making any such statements or comments may find themselves personally liable. Okay, so I've had one emergency motion and unfortunately I've had to rule it out of order. So we'll go on now to the agenda. And we start with item 1A, confirmation and reaffirmation of the minutes of the council meeting held on the 9th of June 2025. I'll propose it, and Councillor McCamley will second. Thank you. Confirmation and reaffirmation of the minutes of the annual general meeting held on the 13th of June 2025. If someone could propose. Mary McCamley, seconded by anyone? Seconded by Owen O'Brien. And thank you. So then questions 2 to 13 proposed by Mary. Yeah.
Number 6, it says, I'm sorry, Malachy, I apologise, but empty nesters. There's no such thing as an empty nesters scheme. And you yourself, Mayor, I did take you up on that one during the development plan when you said empty nesters. So because I said it to you, I need to say it to Malachy. There's no such thing as empty nesters, and it's a horrible name for older people. So I would like us to change that, if possible. Thanks.
All right, noted. Okay, noted. So who's proposing? Somebody has to propose the questions. So I propose the question and seconded by Owen O'Brien. Thank you. So now, where are we at? 2 to 13. The reports of the committees. So 14A, quarterly report of the strategic policy committees. I propose. Somebody would second, please. Anyone second? Seconded by Joe Newman. And then 14B, report of the Organisation, Procedure and Finance Committee meeting held on the 9th of June 2025, proposed, and somebody could second, by John Walsh, Councillor John Walsh. 14C, the report of the Balbriggan Rush Lusk Services Beam area meeting. I proposed by Councillor Quinn and seconded by Councillor Luke Corkery, and report of the Corporate Policy Group meeting held on Wednesday the 2nd of July. Proposed by, I don't think I was there, I propose it, and if somebody could second, so was that the meeting? Somebody, Owen Dockrell. Thank you. All right, we're on to item number 15, the local property tax, and I propose to go to Oliver Hunt for a report on that matter.
Thanks, Mayor. So members would have got the report last week as part of their pack. Is that on me or is it on the... Doesn't move ahead. Do you want to put it up maybe to see? Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with it. Grand. You go. Thanks. And just on to the first slide. Yeah, so the resolution, the Council required to vary the basic rate by plus or minus 15% as recent legislative changes. So the revaluation of all residential properties at the end of this year, and the valuation bands will be widened by 20%, and it's estimated that 96% of properties will remain in the same band. So we'll look at the implications of that in a second. You members have to have regard to a number of items which are in your report: estimation of income and expenditure, the financial position of the local authority, the financial effect of the variation, and the public consultation. So the report was circulated last week, and at this afternoon's CPG meeting they recommended a variation of minus 5% for 2026. So just to reflect on the engagement with yourselves, we give a full update in relation to the budgetary pressures as we face into the 2026 budget preparation at the OPNF meeting in June, just a few weeks ago. And then over the last month we facilitated meetings with all political groupings and independents, again just to discuss the pressures from a financial perspective as we start to form the 2026 budget. So the first thing to look at is just the LPT allocation that we have for 2026. So there's a few things in this just to note. The LPT without variation for 2026 is estimated at 49.7 million. So that's an increase of 3.9 million on the current year. The baseline funding, which is a base level funding all local authorities are to receive. From Fingal's case, that has been increased by 3.6 million. So you see it's gone from 5.8 to 9.4, and that forms an element of our revenue budget for next year. The remainder then is split between the self-funding and LPT for our own use. So you'll see the self-funding is reduced, and what's happened there is the LPT for own use previously was 22.5% of the top line number. That 22.5% has now gone up to 31%. So that's 15.4 million. So 15.4 million is 31% of 49.7 million, which is the total LPT before variation. So if you add that to the baseline, you get a total amount then of 24.8, and just showing it on a like-for-like basis, that's 21.1 million, which is an increase of 8.4 million. There's one thing I just need to point out on that in relation to the benefit that we're getting from the change from 22.5% to 33%. You'll see in the circular that was issued to yourselves as part of the pack, and just quoting it, government noted that any local authority who benefits from the move to 31% retention will be expected to use this additional funding towards urban regeneration programs in their areas. So of that 8.4 million, 4.2 million needs to be used for that urban regeneration piece. Just for your information then, if you go to say a minus 5% variation, that would bring an extra 1.24 million or almost 1.250 million into the revenue for next year. Just in relation to the 4.2 million, sorry, just go back to the previous slide. The 4.2 million, I've clarified with department in that, and the projects that are in our capital programme that require funding, so these are like the community centre refurbishments, library enhancement works, harbour development, swimming pool development, etc., would all fit under that urban regeneration header. Okay, that's over there. So the next one is, Yeah, so this is just an estimation of income and expenditure. So the detailed budget preparation will be ongoing over the next few months. So this is very much a high-level estimation, and it's very preliminary at this stage. It reflects an LPT variation of -5% and a 2.5% rate increase. The expenditure costs that we have reflected in there reflect the discussions that we've had with yourselves at the OPNF and at the meetings over the last few months. So, for instance, it include increased payroll costs and including to facilitate our ability to create additional roles, particularly in housing and operations, fire service costs. It also includes a funding allocation to our capital projects, as we would have discussed in detail with you and have gone through previously at the capital plan. Would also include an increased funding to operations, and again, that's an area that came up a lot with yourselves in the discussions we had with the different groupings. It's an area where we can see the benefit over the last number of years, but there's also increased demand as more open spaces come into our ownership and management, as well as the likes of playgrounds, etc. So there's huge demand in that area. And it's also includes capacity for funding of new facilities, as well as increasing other council activities, such as community events, arts, etc. So the LPT vote, the budget every year, and this will be no different this year when we get our budget returns back from the departments, the funding requests will exceed the funding available. And the LPT vote is an opportunity for councillors to make more funding available to meet these demands. So it's an important element, an important builder in relation to our revenue stream going into next year. Just on to the next slide. So this then just is looking at the impact on the liable person. So across the top there, you can see the percentage of properties in each of the different bands currently. So this is under the current scheme. The revenue have estimated that 96% of properties will stay within the same band. So that's not going to hugely change once the revaluation process is done. So I've highlighted the one in green there is the most common band in Fingal, with 25% of all properties in it. And that is the band from 262 up to 350,000. So currently an LPT payer in that band is paying €291, and that's at the current 7.5% variation. That band widens, as you can see, going into next year. So on a like-for-like basis, that would change then to €308. So if you're minded then to go to, say, a -5% variation, I've just broke it down at the bottom there and highlighted in yellow, that would be 16 cents per week when you break it down. So that's the cost to the liable person in that band. And it's similar for the other bands, you can see the increases, but it's a relatively small amount, and it is something, I think, it's a good slide in the sense it takes the mystery out of local property tax, as in it breaks it down to, you know, what is the cost to the individual. And you can see there very clearly it's a very minimal cost, and going from -7.5 to -5 would yield about 1.25 million. So you can see each 1% variation yields €500,000. So it's something just to bear in mind. There was public consultation carried out, so you can see there was 30 submissions. There's a summary of that in your pack. So the final slide then. It's just the next one, yeah. Yeah, so look, our objective going into 2026 is sustain the quality services to match the fast pace of growth in the county, and to continue to assist in the funding for the delivery of the required capital investment in the county. And that very much came across in our meetings with yourselves. You have a very much similar outlook and a very much similar aspect. So I think the LPT is a significant decision in the building block and allowing us to be able to deliver on that objective for 2026. That's it.
Okay. Well, as I said, there's a proposal from the Corporate Policy Group for 5%, and I'll be moving that motion, but I'm suggesting to the room that whatever other motions we have here, that we take them at the same time and discuss them at the same time, if you're okay with that, instead of repeating the process. Is that okay with the room? Will you go with that? No, you want to do it separately? Want to do it separately? Okay, well,
Just, are you going to put up all of the motions that you've received for information ahead of time, or?
yes, that's my intention. I have to talk to the officials here, yes. Yes. So how many motions have we? We have the corporate policy group motion, that's one. And we have the Sinn Féin group motion and the people before profit group motion. And a collaborative motion from Councillor Mulville and Councillor Tormey. So, right, well, okay, if we're not going to do them all together, let's go, I'm going to go with the corporate policy group motion, and we'll have a discussion and a debate, and we'll see what happens after that. You want to see them all? Okay. Okay, I say, yeah, that's, well, I don't know how we do that, but yeah. Okay, can we put up all the motions so everybody can, I don't know how you're going to manage this with that amount of motions, but.
Sorry, Mayor, just on a point of order.
Yeah.
For taking the corporate policy, that passes, does that not mean the debate is over because all other motions following that have fallen?
That's accurate.
That's why you want to take them all together.
Say again? Okay, right. So, well, in the meantime, the officials here are putting them all on one sheet so you can see them all at one time, which I think would be helpful. To propose and second them individually, obviously. But
When they come in, should we not go by the motions of when they were submitted rather than put the CPG one first?
it's, yeah, I know. Okay. Right, okay. Right, okay, you've asked a question, I wish to answer the question. So the CPG motion is always taken first. So I'm told on the left here. That's it. Okay, so now I'm going to propose, and can we put up the CPG motion? Well, I'll read it out if that works. Is that it there? Okay, okay. So I need a proposer and seconder for that. I propose that motion. Councillor O'Brien seconds that motion. So we'll go through the others now one by one.
Are not there of the CPG. So
there was a meeting of the CPG and the majority voted for this. And Sinn Féin were not in favour. I suppose that's fair to say. And they have their own motion here today. So we have this motion up in front of us. Can I get the next motion so we can get it proposed and seconded, please? We're going through all the motions.
We need to go one by one through these motions. Standing orders doesn't allow like multiple discussions on multiple items.
We just agreed to do that. And as long as we vote on them separately, it's okay. We'll be here all night now if you want to do that. Thanks.
Yeah, but I might want to withdraw mine.
Okay, well, you can do.
Yeah, but
Can do later. Yes?
Just briefly, sorry, this was a motion from members of the Labour Party, the Social Democrats and the Green Party collaborating on it, so it's not from myself, it's from those grouping collaborating.
Okay, that's clear. All right, so can we have a proposer and seconder for this motion? So who's proposing? Councillor Mulvihill, and seconded by Councillor Walsh, the Labour Party. And what's the next motion? Next motion. This is the Sinn Féin motion, so can I proposed by John Smith and seconded by Councillor Quinn. And then what's next? Is this a different one? No. Yeah, hold on.
Motion as well.
On the last one.
Yeah.
Can we add those names, Councillor Burchell and Councillor Redwood, to the last motion, please? And Councillor Mulligan. Mulligan, yeah. Jeez. We're in.
We'll accept that.
Okay, so I think we better get that proposed again, please. Councillor Mulvihill. Sorry, John Smith. Councillor John Smith, will you propose that again because we've added names? And seconded by Councillor Quinn. Okay, so now that's that. Right. I'm not going again. Next motion. Are we lower motion?
We have 5 motions now. Councillor Gearing has also submitted a motion.
Okay, proposed by Councillor Tormey, seconded by Luke Corkery. Next, we're coming in hot and heavy. Okay, that's it. We're good to go now. So I've proposed that Fingal County Council determines in pursuance of the provisions of Section 20 of Finance Local Property Tax 2012 as amended that the basic rate of local property tax stand varied downwards by 5% for the period of November 25 to the 31st of October 2026 in respect of relevant residential properties situated in the administrative area of Fingal County Council. I think it's a reasonable motion. We're all looking for more money for various projects across all our wards, and inflation is hitting Fingal County Council and everyone else. And I think this is a reasonable motion. I hope that you will consider approving it. Most of the, if not the majority, the vast majority of the CPG group agreed with this motion, so I'm asking that you support 5% as the variation for this year. Minus 5%. Is it? Downwards 5%. So is there any other speakers now on the various motions? Take them now if you want to. Patrick Quinlivan, Councillor Quinlivan.
It's Quinlan, but I'll forgive you for that, Chair. I was just about typing up the motion, then you went ahead, but it's all good anyway. I think the rate should remain unchanged. I think this should be completely and utterly abolished at a central government level. In light of us not being able to change it, we should keep it at the negative 7.5%. But I would also like to see Fingal County Council not even trying to collect this tax at all. That we instruct revenue that if they want it, they can go collect it themselves.
Okay, and Councillor Smith.
Thank you. We in Sinn Féin can support a 5% reduction. We are looking for the motion of a 15% reduction from the base rate. Sadly, we can talk about this in terms of cents per week, but in reality, this is one of a never-ending list of hikes, taxes, and temporary measures that are being imposed on the average person for far too long in the state. The greatest burden of past bailouts, overspends, and corruption has fallen on the average worker. Even though our corporation tax is incredibly competitive, it still remains that the real rate corporations pay is far below. If you're a family living in our area in Swords, since the USC was brought in 2011, you've paid extortionate amounts in that temporary measure, which was meant to be abolished by 2021, but it took, the first reduction wasn't until 9 years later. So since these promises in 2006, the average electricity bill in Swords has risen between 63% and 83%, with 15% of that being tax. Gas prices have rose by 78% and continue to rise year on year, and about a quarter of that is tax. And lastly, petrol and diesel since 2016 have risen by 42%, and nearly 60% of that is tax levies and other charges. And we've committed in this country to increasing that year on year till 2030. The list goes on. Stamp duty, bin charges, excise duty, a €1,000 student fee increase was released recently. The average cost of a house in Fingal since 2016 has gone up 40%. Average rent in Fingal is about €2,500. We can't keep squeezing every little last drop out of working families. We need to give them a break. This might be symbolic. People might think that this is a small measure, but again, with that list, we can't look at it in isolation, so we can't support 5%.
Okay, Councillor Evie Tormey.
Thank you. I just want to speak on behalf of the Fine Gael group. I'm just proposing the minus 4%, but actually I'm going to be voting in favour of minus 5%. The reason that we want the minus 5%, which is a 2.5% change from last year, is because we want to see rampant delivery of improvements in our area. As a group, we want to see investment in playgrounds, we want to see investment in sports facilities, we want to see investments in events in Dublin 15. We want to be able to take out loans as a council, which needs to be serviced through our revenue budget. So we need to have that money to be able to deliver for people. Right now, all of the things that we want, the cost is going up through the roof. For example, in the playground down the road from me, 2 new play equipment pieces were put in, and it was like 30-something thousand, wild. So, but we need to keep delivering for people, and that's the feedback that I get from people, is they want more playgrounds, more speed ramps, more everything, and so therefore we have to be willing to fund that, and that's why we as a group are supporting the minus 5%. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Thank you. I agree with my Sinn Féin colleagues that the cost of living for people in this country is too high, whether it's housing, food, utilities. There are real structural issues that require real policy changes at central government level. However, this is the one opportunity that we have to get some funds, much needed funds in for our local council. So when I leave my house in the morning, I have access to incredible free parks, brilliant playgrounds, fabulous beaches. We get free bike rental. We have this little book here just on our desk today about our libraries and all the free events that are going on for the summer, but that's all year round. Free events in community centres or highly subsidised free events all year round. So people in my area, when I am running events, continuously come up to me and say, oh my God, I can't believe this is free, can we pay, can we, you know, they really appreciate all that stuff that they really, really see. It's the one time I think they really appreciate what they're getting for their taxes. So at 16 cents a week extra for most people, I think if you were to ask the average person for 16 cents extra, you get all of these things. Is it worth it? And I would say yes, and we should absolutely do this for the next year. Thanks. Sorry, the 0%, not this 5%. Thank you.
Councillor Owen O'Brien.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, and the Fianna Fáil group and myself and Councillor Butler as members of the Corporate Policy Group agree with the recommendation of the Corporate Policy Group, which is a 5% reduction from the base rate. Councillor Hopkins outlined, you know, many of the great things that are available here in Fingal, and to her credit, she's highlighting them, looking to for no variation from the base rate. We believe the 5% reduction from the base rate is the most prudent way to move forward. We want to protect services and we want to continue to invest in our communities. It's not feasible, it's not realistic to say that we can reduce to the full 15% from the base rate without turning around and saying, well, actually, that would mean our events program is gone, that would mean our operations program of works is gone. You know, these are all the things that we are funding with the LPT discretionary expenditure. So I think the 5% reduction constitutes a 2.5% year-on-year increase, and as Mr. Hunt outlined, it's minimal split across the majority of the bands in the Fingal area in terms of the difference between what's paid this year and what's paid the next year. It's not credible to say that we can do a full 15% LPT reduction from the base rate and then say we can still have a works program, we can still have an events program. We can't. Simple as that. So those of us, and credit to those who are pushing for no reduction whatsoever, I disagree with that point, but certainly if the 5% and the 4% don't, if the 5% falls in the first instance, I'll be strongly considering Councillor Hopkins' motion, because I certainly won't be backing a 15% reduction from the base rate, because it would leave us in a dire financial situation for next year, and that is not how you run a council well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor John Burchell.
Yeah, as socialists, myself and Councillor Redwood are opposed in principle to the idea of taxing family homes, and that's what this is. It isn't really a property tax. It should be called a family home tax. And our homes are not properties. They're the places where we live, you know, raise families, the building block of society, and we've seen the damage caused by, undermining those foundations over the past 10 years. So it's the dishonestly named tax. It's a family home tax, and it has its origins in, the collapse of the banks and the massive bailout. So you had the delinquency and failure of the capitalists, and it resulted in a tax being placed on working class people. That's really what this is about. So we're opposed to it in principle. The battle was fought and lost, and the tax is now imposed, but if we're going to have to pay it, it should be the minimum possible. And if we're looking for revenue, if the Irish state is looking for revenue, it need look no farther than the IFSC. Hundreds of billions, being washed of their tax liabilities in Dublin city centre. And then there's the real property, the property of the capitalist class, the land speculators, the vulture funds, the developers, the landlords. That's who we should be taxing punitively to drive them out of housing speculation, to accumulate revenue and as one mechanism to try and restore some order and decency to Ireland's housing system to address a great societal catastrophe. Thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor Dean Mulligan.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to the Sinn Féin team for putting forward this motion. I'm happy to support the motion for a 15% reduction. And I've listened to all the other contributors, and I actually concur with the need for revenue to generate monies for this council. But we had the same argument 30 years ago regards bin collection services when we ran them in Fingal County Council, and our local authority ran their bin collection and waste collection services. We privatised them, and they make surpluses of over 500 million in Ireland alone. So that's the profit margin that they're making for a service that was in public ownership. Yet we moved that away, and we pay a significant amount of money to provide for collecting people's waste who dump waste and litter this country and county, all because of overpriced bin services and a societal problem now with waste collection because it's privatised. These are political decisions regarding funding that we've made. Councillor Birchall mentioned financial transactions. If we charged the IFSC or multinationals in this country the same as every other person in the country, a financial transaction charge, we'd make billions. The same way me and you pay ATM charges. If we actually looked at the cost of living and the price increased for every item that we buy in the supermarkets, we'd soon realise that the cost of living is increasing for everyone, but wages aren't. So that's the point. We can't just look at every aspect of the ordinary working class people and say, you can afford to pay. At what point do you say, do you know what, we need to look at it from a different lens? European funding, we only last week got our second tranche of COVID resilience funding. We still have a couple of $100 million left there to draw down. There's a lot, we just need to open our minds. There's loads of funding available. You said it yourself in your opening speech when you became mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jimmy Gearan.
Yeah, Mayor, you know, I find this boring year in, year out. The LPT budgets, tax speculators do this, do that. That's not within our gift, the LPT is. But I have a little slide. I'd like to look at it differently, if I may. I'd rather concentrate on two Fingalians, Little Johnny and Little Mary. And I'd like to talk about Little Johnny, you see, because on Little Mary, we have one in every house or every street in Fingal. And yesterday, Little Johnny was out playing football on the council-owned pitch. And the increase in keeping that alive for him is 27%, in line with the wage increases in operations from 14.7 million in 2020 to 18.8 million in 25. Little Mary was down at the fairs that Councillor Hopkins talks about. She was out enjoying the jumping castles, having her face painted and everything else. And she was delighted with it. And in fact, they've been such a success that the demand has increased the cost by 63% in the last 5 years, from 587,000 to 960,000. And then the father took an opportunity when they were down there to clean out his man shed, because the wife was right all along, it was a mad idea. So he threw his broken beer fridge and his television and the bits and pieces at the back of the car, and he brought it down to the Bring Centre. And he was delighted to recycle that part of his life for €8. But he appreciates the costs, because the cost of providing that service in Fingal has gone from 2.23 million in 2020 to 3.27 million in 2025. You see, and then they went to school the next morning to talk about the great time they had. And the traffic warden brought them across the road. And we've allowed a budget of that this year for 1,020,000, and we've gone from 85 to 100 and something traffic wardens from 20 to 25. It has to be paid for. And the way we've paid for all this over the last 5 years is we've had this option to take some money for discretionary spending. Now I've asked, I'd like a pay slip put up there, please, if it's possible. This is a pay slip of an individual last Friday. If corporate could put it up, please. No, all right.
Can't do it. Sorry, councillor.
Why? There's no names on it.
I have no idea.
There's no names on it.
Jeez, they're saying there are names or something.
There's nothing on it that can identify a person. Anyway, I'll answer the question. He came out with €962.07 last Friday. And if we bring in this massive change we're talking about, he'll come out with €961.77. He'll pay the larger amount of 30 cents because his house is worth 600,000. We're not being asked to fleece homeowners. We're being asked to continue to provide the facilities for little Johnny and little Mary. Because Councillor Smith is right, costs have gone up. But Fingal aren't immune from the increase in costs in electricity, wages, charges and so on. Today's challenge is 5%. The next challenge is rates. Because businesses have to step up to the plate. And that's something that we have to do. But let's deal with today, support this motion and then deal with the rates. I hope your motion passes, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. So, councillor James Humphreys.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm speaking in favour of our motion that was proposed by Councillor Mulville and Councillor Walsh. The negative about taking this debate all in one is that there's two separate debates going on at once. There's one element of this chamber that seems to think along the lines of, as Homer Simpson did, of let someone else do it. And then there's others that want to see local government function, want to see local government thrive, and want to see local government deliver. Hopefully we all celebrated Flavours of Fingal this weekend. And that's funded by the LPT and rates. The bus that took people down to it was subsidised. And as we enter into our discussion on budget, one of the things we're going to be discussing an awful lot will be flavours. And I'm sorry to my colleagues, but 5% tax cut is not going to solve that hole. It's not enough to fill that funding gap that we have. And I'd certainly like the Chief Executive's report on that as well, because although we get an increase under the urban regeneration element of it, that doesn't go towards operating costs. The more libraries we open up, the more sports halls, more community centres, there's an operating cost that goes with that as well. And that has to be funded. So although the capital element isn't touched, the operational element of it is. And as why I think we should be taking the fiscal and responsible decision of not bringing in a tax cut. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor John Walsh.
Thanks, Mayor, and I'm supporting the motion proposed by Councillor Mulville. I suppose, listen, I'll make a small number of simple points. The first has been made already, but I think it bears repeating that we need to take a responsible approach to taxation, to local taxation, where we recognise that where we want to provide essential services and we want to expand them, we need to raise revenue for those services. Of course, there's failures of government policy. Of course, there's huge issues in terms of cost of living, but that doesn't absolve us as members of Fingal Council from providing funding and adequately financing essential local services. And I don't think you address a cost of living crisis by a tax cut. I think the way you address a cost of living crisis is to give people decent, high quality public services that they can use, preferably public services that are free, universal and accessible. And it might be worth saying very briefly, a couple of years ago we agreed to move from -10 to -7.5%. What did we do with that? I'm sure members can think of several things. One of the things we did was to provide additional funding for the first time for non-Fingal owned community centres. We started to tackle the horrific crisis in biodiversity. We provided more funding for events, and we provided additional funding for operations in line with inflation. Now think, if we can do that with a modest increase to -7.5%, what we can do with a funding increase to the base rate, where we actually really invest in communities and invest in local services. We need to invest in fully implementing the Biodiversity Action Plan. building and maintaining our local community centres, and providing continuous increases in the operations budget. And those are improvements that people see every day in their day-to-day lives. And finally, the point I'd make is we can see storm clouds on the horizon. We can see the impact of Trump in relation to tariffs. We don't know what the economic impact of that will be. This isn't the time for a wait-and-see approach. It's the time to take decisive action, to provide money, to provide serious investment in our local services. And it's the time to do that now, before we're engulfed in further crisis, before Trump triggers a recession, before services are put under real pressure. We have the opportunity now to act in a responsible way to provide investment in high-quality public services, and we should take that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dara Butler.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, you got to love a la carte socialism. Good to know that mansions won't be getting or will be getting their full 15% reduction. You know, yeah, you can talk about the IFSC all you like. Your simplistic socialism when it comes to the IFSC would simply drive every job there to Luxembourg, and the jobs will go to Luxembourg and the people in Belgium and France who drive over the border every day to do those jobs. You know, yeah, we've got to be realistic here. You know, we need a budget for all the events we have. You know, we're Flavours of Fingal. We're lucky it went ahead yesterday. It was absolutely fantastic event. It was up there on Saturday morning. It really strikes you, all the families and the kids going around, all the smiling faces. It really is a fantastic event. And I'll be arguing for the next year we do everything possible to keep it. And my social media yesterday was awash with councillors, including councillors who are looking for the full 15% reduction, saying how great it is. You know, they're the sort of events that will disappear. We're still given a reduction. You know, the motion that I'll be backing is for a 5% reduction in the LPT, and I think that really is a fair balance. We're going to have a decision to make on rates as well later this year, and I think when you look at the two of them in conjunction, for what it works out, really, like, unless you really are in a mansion, you know, they're the people who are really going to benefit from a 15% reduction here. But if we want to keep the services going, if we want to keep all the other things you praise in this chamber for the next 11 months with you know, no hint of in irony, you know, praising things for 11 months and then coming in here calling for a 15% reduction. We have to be realistic here. You know, we have to stop being populists, and we have to do what is right for this council and right for our residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thank you. Sinn Féin has been consistently opposed to what really is a family home tax and takes no account of ability to pay. In 2022, the LPT variation was reduced from 10% to 7.5%. Today, despite a large increase in our baseline figure, which isn't being mentioned at all, far more than what we'd be getting from reducing the variation, we're seeking a further reduction from 7.5% to 5%. The increase in the bands has given us 3.6 million. Previously, 22.5% of LPT was allocated to us. That has gone up to 31% now. Gone up. Revenue predicts that 96% of properties will stay within their original band, but all of the bands will rise. Everyone will see an increase due to the change in the bands already without what we're doing today. 30 contributions came in, read the submissions. 2/3 of them saw a reduction in the variation. Additional funding is to be used for urban regeneration projects in the area. And to listen to other speakers today, you think we're running Fingal on an absolute shoestring, because apparently the local property tax has been paying for everything. It's been paying for Flavours of Fingal. It's been paying for little Johnny to be playing on his football pitches. It's been paying for events in Dublin 15, etc., 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 all for a princely sum of 3.75 million, because that's what we got from the local property tax last year. We're paying 40 million to deliver a Swords Cultural Quarter. 40 million. We want to see the local government thrive as much as everybody else does, but not on the backs of the ordinary Joe Soap, again and again and again. Those ordinary people that bailed out the banks. What's the correct time to give ordinary people a break? When is it? When will we ever say ordinary people deserve a break now? Not in this chamber.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Helen Redwood.
Thank you. Yes, well, I support the 15% proposal for the reasons that have been given and spoken to, but I think that, you know, something has to be said in response to the rather juvenile remarks made by Councillor Butler. I think it's easy to take a swipe at councillors who are trying to reflect the struggle that so many people have on a day-to-day basis, for whom the austerity imposed by the Fianna Fáil government during the banking crisis has never gone away. And, you know, let's face it, Fianna Fáil government handed billions over to the banks, as has just been said. So are we talking about simplistic solutions? Who's been implementing these simplistic solutions? You know, that government broke the country, had the Troika come in, destroy people's living standards, and I don't think that somebody from that party should be throwing insults around like that.
Okay, noted. Right, so that appears to be all the speakers we have. Unless there's anyone else would like to make a contribution. And I intend now to put the first motion to a vote, which is the CPG motion, the motion agreed by the CPG and proposed by me, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. Do you want to speak?
There were very few questions in the contributions, but just to confirm that the full factual detail in relation to local property tax, as we know it and notified to us last week, was included in Oliver's presentation, including the changes to the baseline and the projected income from local property tax in 2026. I totally agree with councillors when we speak about the things that we do in the county that maybe are a little above and beyond what other local authorities can do, from the perspective of keeping our playing pitches in good condition, from the perspective of having good operational standards in the county, from the events perspective as well, which, don't forget, don't only benefit the people who live in the county, but provide a tremendous benefit to business in the county as well. People who were in Malahide last week for some of the concerts would have seen the village thriving. You'll have seen the concessions, the food and craft and other concessions at Flavours of Fingal over the weekend thriving, and families enjoying the venue. They could choose to spend money or not. They were able to enjoy a lot of free facilities at Flavours of Fingal in Donabate over the last couple of days. So the choices are there. I suppose there will be an impact if we were to go to minus 15%. I can ask Mr. Hunt to come in with the figures to you, but every additional 1% would lose us almost 500,000. So we have a choice here to be made. The councillors have the decision-making power. It is a power that allows you to bring more finance into the county and allow us to attribute that income to what you want done in the county. So in terms of trajectory, going from minus 7.5 to minus 5 would be welcome from the management's perspective. We will spend the money wisely and we'll come back to you with a budget for 2026 in due course. That's a further decision for you in November. But this would be a platform on which we can build that budget. Without it, we will be in difficulty and we'll find it very hard to produce a balanced budget without the property tax income that we have enjoyed this year, and we want it to go further in terms of increased income for 2026. Thanks, members.
Okay, thank you. So is the motion that the local property tax be varied downwards by 5% agreed? Okay, roll call vote. Someone, oh sorry, Oliver.
Sorry, just to follow on from the Chief Executive, yeah, so if the variation went from minus 7.5 to minus 15, that would be a reduction in income of 3.75 million, which would have to come straight out of discretionary spend, so something to think about.
Okay, so back to the question. Is the motion that the local property tax stand varied downwards by 5% agreed? Not agreed. So roll call vote, please. Thank you. 3 minutes. Okay, we're going to reconvene the meeting. All right, now the meeting's starting again. We're going to go to a roll call vote. I hope everyone's here. Are we ready to go to a vote? Yes? Okay. So now, to be clear, yes, this is on the 5%, on the CPG motions, 5%. And so what ways, this is green for 5%, someone correct me if I'm wrong, and red against 5%. Is that correct? Yes. Okay.
The results of the vote are green, yes 17, yellow, abstain 0, red, no 16.
So, on foot of that vote, the other motions fall, and the agreed rate is downwards by 5% this year. So, thank you, everyone. I know. Yes. No. Oh, it's been on the screen and debated, and knows the answer to that request. Thank you. Okay, I have to read this resolution into the record. So the resolution is that Fingal County Council determines, in pursuance of the provisions of Section 20 of the Finance Local Property Tax 2012 as amended, that the basic rate of local property tax stand varied downwards by 5% for the period of the 1st of November 2025 to the 31st of October 2026 in respect of relevant residential properties situated in the administrative area of Fingal County Council. Thank you. Right, we move on to the next item, which is proposed disposal of properties, and we have a 16A. Notice of proposed disposal of land at Pinnock Hill Swords, Dublin, to St Michael's House. Can I get a proposer? Proposed by Owen O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Mulligan. Next one is 16B, proposed lease of land and grant of way leave at Ballymastone, Donabate, County Dublin, to St Patrick's Gaelic Football Club. Proposer. Proposed by Owen O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Mulvihill. The third one is 16C, proposed disposal of land at Porterstown, Dublin 15, Castletorn Developments, Luttrellstown Limited, proposed by Councillor Chauvelin and seconded by Councillor Tom Kitt. And then we move on to number 17, 17A, Park Road Rush, proposed by anyone? Councillor Mark Boland, and I second that. And then we go to, number 18, which is the draft litter management plan. Is that for? So this has been through the area committee, I understand, or area committees. I don't propose. Okay, there's some motions in from Councillor Healy, I understand, on the plan. So, Councillor Healy, do you want to speak to the motions? And where are these motions, or what's the procedure?
Mayor, just the presentation, as you said, has been through the SPC and the area committees. So we're happy to go through a short 5-minute presentation just to give you the improvements that are going to happen with the plan being implemented. If it's agreed, we also have a number of motions from Councillor Healy that obviously have to be put up, and we talk them through them with the members. So Catherine will do a short presentation for 5 minutes, and then we take the motions.
Okay, 5 minutes max. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a very brief presentation just to remind members of what's in the draft litter management plan and what are the proposed changes going forward. As you've said, it's been through all the ACMs and the SPC. So we're just reminding members it's a reserve function. It's got 4 pillars to it: enforcement operations, community engagement, education and awareness, and litter prevention and control. The challenges we went through with the various ACMs relating to fly tipping, illegal dumping, litter issues, the list is there, and we also have on the right-hand side how we're going to approach that through education and awareness, and the penalties we're looking at are warnings, fines and direct prosecutions, moving more towards fines and direct prosecutions with the new plan. And then we also have the street cleaning regime operated by our operations department and the management of the bin network. The plan is a 4-pillar plan, which we've mentioned above. It will include the expansion of the enforcement and the litter enforcement section to 7-day services, currently a 5-day service with weekend overtime. We have migrated from litter patrols for the litter wardens, and we're actually operating on complaints and litter hotspots. We have begun the reintroduction of the CCTV cameras, which were used previously, but have since, at one period, were withdrawn. We are proposing walking patrols at the town centres for the litter wardens and the interaction with businesses in the town centres. Working more closely with businesses is the focus of the new plan. We will be looking at more direct media campaigns with more negative images about the effects of littering rather than, I suppose, positive social media campaigns. We will continue to manage the bin network, which has a network of solar compactor bins, 200 and 895 of the other bins. We will continue to work with our communities. Communities are a major part of the work we do in terms of community cleanups and the interaction with the environmental awareness section, and we will continue to upgrade our policies. And one policy there mentioned is the abandoned car policy, which came into force in the last few years, and now we'll start expanding it to look at some of the vehicles that are more difficult to move for us. So that's really the kind of focus of the new plan. The next steps, I suppose, is we have to either adopt the plan, and that's why we're here tonight, to look for the adoption of the plan, the agreement, or we adopt with such modifications as the members deem appropriate. And that's just the resolution there. So we're ready and can take any questions that you have on the plan or the CE report or the motions.
Great, thanks for a very brief presentation. Great. Councillor Healy, did you have some questions, whatever? And I have other councillors here. Okay, I'm going to go to the list in front of me. Sorry, Councillor Healy. So, Councillor O'Brien.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks very much for the presentation and indeed the work of the team. I know myself and other councillors would have attended the workshops and so forth, and previous presentations at area committee, but I suppose a couple of points that I just want to make that bear reiterating, just around how we, around the impact of the new plan and what I believe it should be. You mentioned dealing with businesses, particularly our town centres and indeed our local centres. We really need to take that one on, because there's businesses repeatedly in breach of waste presentation bylaws week to week. We've got tidy towns groups all over the county who are blue in the face saying it to us that they don't feel that strong enough action is being taken. So I just would appreciate a bit more information on that. The CCTV piece, I've said it numerous times in this chamber, we should have CCTV at every bring bank in the county. They are litter black spots. Then we can go through the country lanes, Stockhole Lane, the Mine Road, Kettles Lane, where we see repeated fly tipping, mostly from cars passing through. So they're areas that really needs focus under this plan. The litter warden service as well, and how that works around the county, I believe should be reviewed, so that we're putting as much focus as we can, and I appreciate that part of that role is having to go into court for prosecutions and so forth, but we need to see that visibility on the ground. And when people know they won't get away with it, that's when we make the difference. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Thank you very much. I just want to first of all pay tribute to all the tidy towns all around Fingal. They're out doing huge work, and as Owen has kind of said, they're a bit sick of it, to be honest. Everyone loves picking up litter. It's very satisfying, but it gets to a stage where you're like, for the love of God. So we do really want the council to meet us halfway, and we're talking about enforcement. I'm talking about, as Owen says there, town centres, particularly your pubs, your bookies and your takeaways. They are not getting fined in the way they should be. They've had opportunity after opportunity to be good citizens, and I don't believe that they have been. And also the wider business area like Dublin Bus, Irish Rail, because outside bus stops and train stations is a scourge as well. I want to specifically mention the cigarette-related litter. 48% of our litter is cigarette butt related. It seems to be the last piece of litter that people think it's grand to just throw on the ground. The cigarette butts are part of the single-use plastic directive, and I don't see them listed in the second part as such. We were, as part of the single-use plastic directive, we were advised that the cigarette companies would be paying additional taxes in order to support local authorities picking up cigarette-related materials. Now, I believe that central government are collecting that tax, but I've been advised that they haven't started distributing it amongst the local authorities because they're not sure how to do that. Now, I hope they don't spend too long with a task force or a committee or what have you, and just divide it up among the local authorities, but I would appreciate a follow-up to central government to find out where they are with that. And just also the street cleaning. There are so many streets that cannot be cleaned, and I've been saying this for years, can't be cleaned because there's cars parked, they're public roads. In other countries, they have days of the week, on a Tuesday or the Thursday or whatever, you park on the left or the right. But if we cannot implement something like that, we need to have some way of getting the lads out of their trucks and sweeping curbs, because there's so many cigarette butts going into the shores and into the sea. And finally, just as Owen said as well, the closed banks, I passed one today, and I was like, great. I saw the lad emptying it this morning, and I was like, great, I can bring some stuff down there. When I was coming back out to the meeting today, it was already full, and I saw a lad leaving bags beside it. So we definitely need, I don't know if we need to empty them twice a day, but we need to have CCTV and fines for people dumping. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor David Healy.
Cormaga de Vera. Chair, I'd also like to pay tribute to the work of the volunteers in the Tidy Towns Band, and also our own operations staff who do a really good job in cleaning up far more litter than they should have to. And I'd like to thank the Environment section for their work on this plan, which I think is a good plan and is taking us in the right directions. I have two issues which I have submitted motions in relation to. One is when we have a discussion of main litter contributors in the plan, on pages 15 to 17, we don't mention takeaways. And certainly in the seaside towns, takeaways are an enormous issue. And I'm not suggesting we don't want people to come to our towns and eat outside. We do, but we need to address it in this plan, and we need to be engaging with those businesses to deal with the problem that they're creating for us and for the environment. And so I have amendments in relation to that. And the other amendment is in relation to how we manage our beaches. The plan refers to the mechanical raking, and that is causing an issue for the thriving dune systems which we should have, because we're removing seaweed from the beaches which we need to leave there. What I've proposed as a motion, as an amendment, is not a commitment that we're going to do anything in particular, but that we're going to look at learning from the experience of the pilot that we have run in Balcarrick Beach and consider extending it fully or partially to other beaches, particularly those facing erosion challenges subject to the availability of resources. So that's a commitment that we're going to engage in a process of looking at it. And it's not we're going to end all the mechanical cleaning straight away, but it is recognising that there is a difficulty with what we're doing because we are worsening the erosion on some of our beaches. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Walsh.
thanks, just thanks to Catherine and the team for the plan. I think it's a good plan, and I appreciate all the work that's been done on it. I suppose just a couple of points. I really welcome the move towards direct prosecution. I think that really can't come soon enough. I'm certainly aware, and I'm sure other councillors are, of operators who are engaged in putting up illegal signage, illegal stickers. They're willing to absorb the fines. They've been repeatedly fined, and the signage remains up. And they've been reported by Tidy Towns, for example, a company in Casnock Village called Just Dance and Fitness, previously named and discussed at the area committee, has chosen to absorb fines and continue to break the law. But it's not just advertising companies, also some estate agents, for example, have chosen to put up illegal signage outside estates. Environment don't remove signage, I understand that. Operations may do, but the signage is still up and people are absorbing fines. So direct prosecution is essential. Similarly to Councillor Hopkins, Councillor O'Brien, just want to thank the Tidy Towns for the work they do. I mean, the reality at the moment is that without the work of Tidy Towns, many of our village centres would be in very poor condition, would be in rag order. And there is a need for other groups, for businesses to step up. There's no question about that. Just a couple of quick questions. I know more litter wardens are being employed, and I think that's really essential as part to support the plan. I might just ask, what's the time frame for that? Will that happen? I mean, that really needs to happen as soon as possible. And secondly, to agree with the point made by Councillor O'Brien about CCTV, the council is now able to use CCTV based on legislation, but it's still used quite cautiously. And really, we need to have a policy of having CCTV in every significant black spot in the county. And the Porterstown Road in Dublin 15 is an appalling example of that. So, I think that's something that needs to be addressed as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Malachy Quinn.
Very much welcome the report, and I just want to thank the operations team for all the work that they do on continuous basis. It must be very disheartening when you come across dumping in the same area and you go back to 2 hours later and the dumping has happened again, because I've seen it myself while driving around the constituency. I just want to thank the Tidy Towns as well. Ostensibly, the biggest problem, the biggest offenders here are the nighttime economy, the takeaways and the pubs. And as Councillor Hopkins has mentioned there, in regards to cigarette butts, this is the mainstay of the Tidy Towns group in Balbriggan. In the morning time when they're coming out, they're clearing up cigarette butts. They're down on the beach clearing up cigarette butts, and we need to be mindful. And look, we need a name and shame policy as well. If we have repeat offenders that are continuously offending, and some of them have been mentioned at a local area meeting on the other side in Dublin 15, but if we have companies like that, we need to name and shame them. They're continuously affecting our local economy. They're affecting our local environment. So I think we just need to name and shame them. Thank you very much.
Councillor Joe Newman.
We had a comprehensive presentation on the litter management plan last week, and Councillor Healy has a couple of issues which I'll be hoping to support him with. It certainly was very comprehensive, and I did forward on the presentation to certain members there to have a look, and it's probably good to have that all the time, that we can have a look before the presentation, and so as we know when it comes up, the short presentation is really acceptable. I just want to lend my voice to the Tidy Towns for all the great work they do, and other groups around the area. We have swords pickers here in Swords that do invaluable work as well. Littering on private roads, like just not too far from here, we have an area that's not under the control of the Fingal County Council, and it's regularly littered. And I know some people, maybe Tidy Towns, might go in to try and help out in that, but I'd certainly like to see some enforcement in those areas. We have another building up there not far from where the old large mayor's site is. I don't want to mention the local business, it would be unfair to them, but the end of a building there is regularly done with all sorts of cardboard packaging, and it's a fire escape from a building. And I know Councillor Kelly has been on to Fingal County Council about it, but really we need enforcement. We need people to grab the nettle and follow through and find out who the owners are, and pursue them if they're not keeping the area clean. Certainly on closed banks, I think it's just excuse for people to bring all sorts of rubbish and throw them down specifically up in the River Valley area, you know. And I think there needs to be probably more policing of those areas just to ensure that they are kept clean. So certainly the closed banks, I don't see really that remaining in place. There should be some other way to recycle clothes, because I think what's sent up there is probably stuff that's being brought to certain people, and they don't want them, then they go up there and they just dump them out there, you know. So really a bit more policing and enforcement on that. But all in all, thanks very much for the presentation.
Thank you. Councillor Dean Mulligan.
Thanks, Mayor, and just want to thank the Environment Department for the consultation that they had and the work that they've done on the plan. I haven't read all the 50-odd pages of the document, but I did look over it prior to today, and I thought the consultation process for the scheme was really comprehensive and really impressive, and one of the better ones that I've engaged with in my time as a councillor. And I just want to thank the team for that, because I think thorough consultation, us as councillors, some of us may think we're experts in everything. We're not, far from it. So getting the expertise from the teams and having a really thorough conversation really helps us in terms of the betterment of our understanding of the process and the policies. And I thought this process was excellent, and I welcome the feedback from councillors and all the work done. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Corkery.
Thanks, Catherine, and thanks to you and your team for all of your hard work on putting this document together. I did comment on your presentation back last month, so I won't hold you long. It's obviously been a busy summer, and I spoke to you there yesterday at Flavours, and I was at the Malahide concerts too. Obviously, that's somewhere where we see a lot of litter, waste, plastic, cans, the like. I was wondering, is there scope to replicate something similar to the scheme that we rolled out in Malahide on New Street recently, in terms of that reusable coffee cup scheme, but with cups and plastic at our concerts, and if Flavours might be a bit big for it, but would it be feasible to pilot that at one of our Fingal events next year? So be interested to hear that, because I think it would work really well. So thank you.
Councillor Kieran Dennison.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to join with my colleagues in thanking all those who work on litter in Fingal. In terms of the next litter management plan, I'm just wondering if we would extend the term to 5 years or 6 years rather than just 3 years. 3 years seems to be a very short span for a plan. And the same goes for a lot of our strategies and plans. I also feel that somehow they're 3 or 4 or 5 years, and we wheel out more consultants to rework them, and that if they were a longer term, that at least we could tweak them and review them as we go along. So I'm just wondering if that's something that would be considered. Might also help the environment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Darren Jack Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Catherine to presenting the litter management plan. I think it's great, and also I'd like to say a big thank you to Swords Pickers and Swords Tidy Towns, who do a great job in the local area, and thank you to the guys that do the jobs in Fingal in general, keeping the place clean. I know my colleagues here have mentioned cigarette butts. I don't know if it's an idea that maybe some of the relevant person in the council can touch base with cigarette companies, meet some of the relevant person there, and come up with a new innovation in regards maybe just having something attached to the cigarette box where they can recycle the cigarettes in the box, or put it in the box as well. They're using because it's on the spot. But thanks for the presentation.
Thank you. Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thanks a lot, and thanks, Catherine, for the presentation. And I'd like to echo what some of my colleagues here said. It was a really, really good consultation process. And what I really can see, and I've said this at local area meeting, but I can see the comments that were made during that consultation programme throughout the whole plan, which is really good. And it makes it so much more worthwhile for councillors to take part in consultation processes like that, when you can see that you're being listened to. So it was really, really good. I'm just going to take this opportunity to, like all my colleagues as well, thank all the Tidy Towns group. And seeing as we're naming people, Clonsilla Tidy Towns, Castleknock Tidy Towns, Unger Tidy Towns, and Blanchardstown Tidy Towns. And one last thing, some more bins would be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mark Boland.
Just want to say, Captain, thank you very much for the presentation on this, which I had a few weeks ago. Very informative, and we did speak back then about the importance, I think, in a plan like this of educating people. And I feel that we really need to push that as an element. There is enforcement needed on the businesses to do what they should in the towns and centres in terms of providing bins. We all as councillors have, I'm sure, numerously asked for bins around all our towns and areas, and a lot of these should be provided by the businesses, so I welcome the enforcement that will be needed on that. I also, like my other councillors, would like to thank the work of all the Tidy Towns and clean-up groups within Fingal. In my particular area, see them, we're all naming names again. We have the Lusk Clean-up Group. We also have the Tidy Towns in both Lusk and in Rush. And the work they do is invaluable in order to keep our towns clean. And I feel we should engage with them, especially on this process, because they may play a very important role in terms of education, in terms of being able to engage with some of the businesses locally within their area. And we can hopefully remain keeping all our towns clean. So again, thanks for the presentation.
Okay, and Councillor Siobhan Shovlin.
I'm going to be brief as well, but I would like to just row in and support the people who have called for more bins. I think, in fairness, you know, we're not asking for that many bins, to be honest, so I just would like to know, like, where are we in terms of the possibility of getting some additional bins? It does come up at our local area committee as well, from all different people, so that's something. Even this week I got a request for one in Clonsilla, so if you could just advise on where we're at, the possibility of more bins. Thanks.
Councillor Tom Kitt, are you?
Yeah. Thanks, Mayor, and I want to coincide as well with excellent work done by Fingal and all the people in the area in Dublin 15, because it has been a major issue. I raised at our local meeting as well, is the abandoned cars. It's a major issue in all housing estates, and I see there's going to be a prognostication of an investment in abandoning cars will be removed. It's an issue that was going to continue on with people allegedly parking cars and also operating businesses out of estates like that, especially garages, etc. And I hope Fingal will be very strict on that, because no matter what estate you go into, that's the first thing you'll hear people complaining about. Thank you again for the presentation.
Okay, Councillor Breda Hanapi.
Thank you, and I just want to echo what everybody has said. Brilliant presentation, thanks. And one thing that came up, if the litter warden could be more visible on the ground, especially in some estates where it's really bad. And if we are naming, I'd just like to name the brand newly formed Cardiff Community Group, Clean-up Group. Thank you. And again, more bins.
Okay, that's all the speakers, so back to Dave Story for the time being, and then...
Yeah, members, thanks for all the contributions. Catherine will deal with the general questions, but just generally around litter and the plan, we're moving to what we'd say is a lot more enforcement over the next number of years. That's the idea behind this plan. The litter wardens will be moving to a split shift, so winter and summer hours. So you'll see litter wardens in the towns and villages up till 9 o'clock in the evening in the summer. So that's something that we're working on. The businesses that Councillor Healy has said and takeaways, that's a key priority within the plan to try and deal with some of those issues. Just in relation to CCTV, CCTV was removed a number of years ago because of GDPR issues. And obviously there's been new regulations approved, and the provision of CCTV now goes through an oversight committee here within Fingal. So we will look to roll out additional CCTV this year and next year, and hopefully the property tax will give us some funding towards that. But Catherine will deal with the rest of the queries. Thanks.
Thank you, and thanks members for your comments. I suppose we want to reiterate the role of the community groups. They are an important part of our interactions And we do consult with them, and we did consult them as part of the drafting of this particular litter management plan. I suppose maybe working backwards from the comments, the litter wardens, Councillor Hannapy, are due to become more visible in terms of their presence in their walking patrols and also in terms of their vehicles. As Mr. Story said, they will be working on a split shift to later in the evening, so they will be seen during their walking patrols in the town centres. I will leave the issue of bins to Miss Daly. She can come in at the end. Just in terms of abandoned cars are covered under Section 71 of the Waste Management Act. So when we lift them, they're taken to be destroyed at that point. So it's not a badly parked car. It's actually something that's considered waste and is clearly waste, and we've gone through a process with it. The educational piece, we work very closely through the education awareness programme with a number of different communities and a number of different groups, and we carry out a number of different trainings and awarenesses throughout the year. So the education piece we recognise is a very important part of interaction with our communities. Councillor Corky, with regard to the concerts, the Malahide concerts this year had reusable cups. They had reusable pint glasses with the Heineken. With Heineken this year, so we'd hope to further develop that as we go along. So the reusable cups in Malahide and Rush at the moment, they're in a pilot towards the end of the year, and we'll assess them at that point. Councillor Dennison, the requirements in the 3 years, in fact all of it is set out in the Litter Pollution Act, that this reserve function, what it includes. So I suppose we're just complying with the Litter Pollution Act in terms of the requirements around the litter management plan. Again, we have touched on businesses and our commitment to engage more in businesses and more in the town centres as part of this particular litter management plan. Mr. Story's indicated that enforcement is a big part of it, and direct prosecutions, in particular in case of signage, Councillor Walsh, will be looked at, so that we're not constantly finding the same people, that we actually move towards direct prosecution for reoffenders. Councillor Quinn, the nighttime economy is, as Mr. Story said, the litter wardens will be on till 9 o'clock. During a split shift in the summer season, so they will be able to interact with businesses relatively late into the evening. I would just remind, I suppose, members that we do need evidence to prosecute people, and sometimes it's not always possible that when people buy takeaways, they can move away from the immediate area of the takeaway before they dispose of the wrapping or whatever box they have with it. The clothes banks, as Councillor Hopkins referred to, we can empty them now and they can be full in half an hour, so we do have to look at the clothes issue in the textile banks around the county. The time frame, Councillor Walsh, is once the plan is adopted, we will move towards, I suppose, integrating the requirements of the plan into the job descriptions for the new shift of the litter wardens. So that can happen quite immediately in the next number of weeks, and then we go through a process. I don't think we can come to name and shaming. I don't think we can name individual people that are involved in illegal dumping. CCTV is being rolled out through the county. It is based on evidence. When we go to the Oversight Board, which is chaired by the Director of People Services, Ms. Egan, we have to have evidence of illegal dumping, and that's what the litter wardens do. They take photographs of all the different locations throughout the county where they come across it, or littering on the litter app, and we make a case based on that. I would also just maybe point out that all the fines that are picked up in the cameras have to be viewed by the litter warden, so there's a resource issue at the other end. So we have to work to our litter hotspots initially. So it wouldn't be feasible, I suppose, for us to have them in all the bottle banks, but it would be feasible maybe to pick the top bottle banks and then move them once we have approvals. Just in terms of business, Councillor O'Brien, just to say that there is another team of waste enforcement officers that look after the waste presentation bylaws and how the businesses put out their bins, and they can follow up on any complaint that is received. I think that's all the environmental ones. I might pass over to Ms. Daly to cover the bins and the sweeping of the cigarette butts. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mayor. With regards to the bins, there's a provision in the budget each year. The provision in the budget is for the payment of the leasing on the bins, but there's also 20,000 in each area for additional bins. So the members know the procedure. If you're looking for a bin in a particular area, then do write into us. However, we have gone out to put in bins in a number of locations, and the residents don't want them. So just be clear when you are coming in that there is agreement from the residents that they do actually want a bin at a particular location. Street sweepers are there with regards to the cleaning of the cigarette butts. That's all I can say about that. We try and clean, we try and pick up as much as we can, and we'll continue to do that. And we have the street sweepers then in the cycle lanes as well. So we'll continue to just take up as much litter as we can. But the bin, you all know the procedures for getting a bin, so put in your rep and it'll be considered. But we have a budget of 20,000 per year. So if we've it spent by now, don't ask for another bin in your area. Okay, thanks.
Okay, that appears to be all the contributions. So is right with motions. What's agreed? Yeah, okay, we need a proposer and seconder for whatever motions appear here now. Okay, yes, so.
Need a proposer.
Yeah, okay, can I get a proposer? Proposed by Councillor David Healy and seconded by Councillor Hopkins. And the motion is?
On the motion, the first motion there, Councillor Healy obviously has put in a number of minor amendments. We're happy to include them in the plan if it's agreed by the members.
Oh, is that agreed by the meeting?
There's a second amendment there for operations.
What are we? Is all this here? Or we're on a second motion now. Is the first one agreed?
Second, yeah, the first one's agreed.
Okay, agreed. So now what's next?
The second amendment there is for beaches.
So proposed by Councillor Healy, seconded by Councillor Hopkins, and it's what's in front of us. And David, who's taking this? Mary G. Daly.
And just to advise the members, this has come up on a number of occasions. I don't want it confused with the Green Coast, what was done with regards to Balcarrick Beach in Donabate, and I don't know why it's mentioned in there. The Green Coast, there is a protocol for the Green Coast. It's very much involves the community groups coming out and cleaning the beach, which we do appreciate. That's what they do in Donabate, and they go into the dunes as well. They do quite a lot of cleaning, and that's why they've got the award. My concern here is that there'd be, from the point of view of the mechanical raking of the beaches, we will not be ceasing that in Borough Beach and Portmarnock Beach. It's just not possible to do it. I couldn't imagine in Borough Beach next week if we didn't get the mechanical raker in there to take all of the rubbish out. But listen, we'll look at what we are doing on all of the beaches, and we'll come back to the members on it and see what we can do with regards to the collection of the waste. But during the bathing season, mechanical raking and Borough Beach and Portmarnock, and indeed Skerries, is essential, and we will continue to do that because we have to make sure the beach is safe for the public and try and get the litter out as quick as possible. I think there's a number of pictures in the CE report with regards to the amount of rubbish that was in Borough Beach over one of the weekends. over all weekends indeed, and the area manager ensures there's sufficient bins and additional bins put out there. So but we look at what we can do on all the beaches, and we look at the beach management for all beaches and do a comparison and see what we can do in 2026. Thanks, members.
Back to Councillor Healy. Oh, sorry, Evie Tommy. Councillor Tommy's on the screen here.
Yeah, thank you. Can I just get clarification how many of the beaches are mechanically raked within the county? Because I totally agree with what Miss Daly is saying. Like Burrow Beach, the level of litter there is wild. So there's no way you could expect residents to go out and manage that. So I just want to get a sense of actually what is going on at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Healy, do you want to come in? Do you want to come in yet, or not? No, wait. Mary T. Daly.
So all of the beaches are mechanically raked once a week during the bathing season, except for Donabate.
Okay, so the manager's not recommending this amendment here.
No, I have no issue with reviewing,
reviewing.
the way we're managing
Okay.
the beaches, and no issue
Okay.
with that. But just to make it clear with regards to mechanical raking on Burrow Beach and Portmarnock, I really would not be recommending ceasing that.
So the amendment is accepted? Yes? Is that correct? No comment? Agreed. Okay, agreed. Now are we on to proposing and seconding the full report?
You put up the motion, the resolution. Sorry.
So here's the resolution here. That this, I'll have it here. Right. This council resolves to, in accordance with the Litter Pollution Act 1997, to adopt the Litter Management Plan 2025-2028 as presented to the council on the 7th of July with agreed amendments. I'll propose, and somebody second, Joe Newman, and I presume we're agreed. The room agrees. Is that correct? Yes, thank you. Okay, agreed. Right, we're on to next item is the draft Homeless Action Plan. Now, I can propose and agree this, or we have a short presentation. What would you like to do? Do you want? Proposed? I'd propose. Seconded by Councillor Hannapy. Agreed? Agreed? Okay. Okay, okay. We have some councillors who want to speak on it. So we'll press the button there. Okay, presentation, please. Short presentation.
Thanks, Chair. Just give a brief background there. Pauline's going to give a short presentation. Local authorities, just for your information, local authorities are required by legislation to prepare an action plan to address homelessness. The Dublin Regional Homeless Executive, the DRHE, has prepared a plan in conjunction with FCC and the other local authorities. The DRHE is the lead agency, have laid on that plan. We'll go through the presentation now. It's been presented to the Housing SPC and approved by them, and I'd be asking for your support tonight on it to approve it, please.
Just by way of introduction, Liam has already given it that local authorities are required under Section 37 of the Housing Miscellaneous Provisions Act 2009 that each local authority in the country must prepare a homeless action plan to address homelessness in the administrative area. In Dublin, the Dublin Regional Homeless Executive under DCC, Dublin City Council, is the lead local authority to address homelessness, and as such are responsible for coordination the implementation of this homeless action plan. The key stakeholders are Dublin City Council, Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown, ourselves, Fingal County Council, South Dublin County Council, service users, elected members of the 4 councils, and statutory and voluntary service providers. So the objectives is the prevention of homelessness, reduction of homelessness, and in its extent or duration, so the length of time people remain homeless, the provision of services including accommodation to address the needs of homeless households, provision of assistance under Section 10b(1) as necessary to persons who were formerly homeless, and the promotion of effective coordination of activities proposed to be undertaken by the bodies referred to in this subsection for the purposes of addressing homelessness in the administrative area or areas concerned. So there's 3 pillars in the plan: prevention, protection and progression.
And under prevention is preventing vulnerable cohorts entering homelessness. That's including older people, people over 65. Support to maintain tenancies and avoid evictions. Integrated planning for care leavers, so young people leaving state care, hospital discharges, etc. And protection then is to reduce rough sleeping, to address the need to have enough emergency accommodation across the region, so across the 4 Dublin local authorities. The importance of standards in emergency accommodation and to facilitate exits from emergency accommodation. And progression is the third pillar, which is to reduce chronic homelessness, transition families to secure housing and to expand housing options, etc. That's me. Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie. Okay, Councillor John Burchell.
Thanks, Chair. I'll just reiterate some of the points I made at the Housing SPC in relation to notices of termination. As being the major factor of people falling into homelessness, I'd like to see much more robust protections on the tenant side of things. For example, the registration of the landlords with the RTB is not checked as part of the threshold process or, incredibly, the RTB process. So I've had several cases where people have received notices of termination validated by threshold. The RTB send out the acknowledgement letter to the tenant and you check their website and the property in question isn't registered. That seems quite incredible. It's a legal requirement that the landlord is registered. And all notices of termination should be invalid if issued by a landlord who hasn't registered his property. The second thing I'd say is we need real enforcement on the statutory declarations. So the typical declaration the landlords make is they're either selling the property or a family member is moving in. There's no checks afterwards as far as I can see. Nobody comes back to check that the landlord has actually sold the property. There's no checks done on the title, 9 months later, which is the undertaking that the landlord makes. And the last thing I would say is I've come across a couple of cases where notice of termination were issued and validated to parties who weren't the legal owners of the property. So serious holes in the system. The tenants badly need protection. Lastly, I'd say that well done to the housing team on preparing this comprehensive report, but the fact that we need one is a tacit admission that the government's housing action plan and strategies isn't going to work, and we're going to see increased homelessness, increased rents, increased house prices, which is the real objective here. They're not trying to solve this crisis, they're trying to enrich the capitalist class, and they've been hugely successful in that regard. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Cahill Haughey.
Yeah, thanks for the report, and there's a few comments I made at the Housing SPC, and just to summarise them, because I think it would be helpful to just say that a full council meeting and hear if other councillors have experienced this, but I said that I've come across situations where there's rough sleepers who have been offered emergency accommodation and are choosing not to go there because they think it's safer to sleep on the streets than go into some of the emergency accommodations that are out there, because they might have former drug addiction issues and they don't want to be around drugs. They're told me that they've been robbed or they've been attacked or they don't want to share a room with certain people. I know Mr. Burke told me that if I've any specific cases to pass them on, and I will do that going forward, but there is something wrong when people are preferring to sleep on the street and go into some emergency accommodations. And then we have the situation where constituents are coming to us saying, this person is sleeping rough, can you not help them? They might give them a few bob, and then we've sent the rep in. We get the reply, Mr. Joe Bloggs is 2,000 on the housing list. He will get an offer when he's at the top. Homeless services will engage with them, and then they do, to be fair. And as I said, some people are choosing to not go into the homeless services because they don't feel safe there. So that is an issue that we need to look at. If there's crime being committed in these emergency accommodation locations, it should be stamped out, because it's the law-abiding homeless people who should feel safe and have a roof over their head, and we shouldn't be scaring them off by letting in people who are threatening them. So yeah, just wanted to put that on the record. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Paul Mulville.
Chair, and thanks, Ms. Burke, for the presentation and for the ongoing support around the various homeless queries. And indeed, this is a good plan, as I mentioned. A lot of very important actions in there. And I think the focus on the quality of the emergency accommodation is very important. I think we have seen some improvement over the years, but still a lot more needs to be done. As others have mentioned, some people preferring not to go into the emergency homeless accommodation. But really, we need to commit, we need to ensure we continue to try and move towards high quality emergency accommodation with supports, not the private emergency accommodation model, and ensure that there's long-term supported housing available in the Fingal region, which is key, and families in particular should always be able to be placed in emergency homeless accommodation near to where they're based, near to where they had been living before they lost their home. And I think points 22.1 and 22.2, we need to really commit to those actions and invest in them urgently, and also to ensure that we continue to ensure that the homeless team is well resourced at all times, and that we continue to improve where there have been problems in the past around delays in registering people as homeless, which caused them problems when they were going through very difficult circumstances. That's improving, and we need to continue to put resources into that. I believe make sure they get support quickly when they are going through the homeless crisis which people are facing. And also the report is right to note the importance of the approved housing bodies and social housing bodies in terms of the exiting from homelessness, which is key. And we need to obviously continue to work closely with the AHBs. And you know, I know issues in the past around the process of getting the people nominated to the AHBs. I think that's improved somewhat, but continue to seek how can we improve that collaboration with the approved housing bodies to get the people obviously out of homelessness into the units as they're provided. And so just to commend the report obviously and support it, and ensure urge that we focus on it as a council and invest in it. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Thank you. So Councillor Luke Cockery.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to Liam and your team for the work that went into this. And I want to throw my full support behind it too. It mentions on page 1 that this plan won't end homelessness in Dublin by 2027, but I think it does represent something that we all here know to be true, which is that our housing team in Fingal, Liam and so many more, work day and night to help us with the many cases that we deal with, which are too many, but people who are facing into some of the most difficult stages of their lives, and you deal with them with care and with compassion, and I want to thank you for that. And you're also always on the end of the phone when we do raise these things. So thank you for your work, and thanks for this plan, and it's got my full support. So thanks.
Councillor Malachy Quinn.
I just want to commend Liam and his team. I conversed more with Liam and his team than I did with my wife in the last few weeks because of the homeless crisis. I don't mean to be flippant about that, but one of the biggest challenges we have here within the town that I live in Balbriggan, is there's been private rental inspections, and rightly so, of subdivided units, and the landlords have been told that they need to bring that back on spec, and rightly so. But that results in one case 6 families that will be contacting Fingal next week in regards to the homeless situation. So this doesn't lie with Fingal County Council. That issue does not lie with Fingal County Council. They're doing their utmost. We've got Matthew there arranging for people. Matthew Farley arranged for people to go out and inspect these properties, but there's no teeth to that. So all of that work that's done will fall aside because there's no teeth there from central government to be able to deal with these issues. Just in relation to also the point around emergency accommodation, North County is probably, I don't know if it's the same, I don't know if the Dublin 15 councillors will find this, but the North County, emergency accommodation is very scarce on the ground. So you have situations where family are going into emergency accommodation, they're going to the city centre and the kids are attending school. Some of them are doing their leaving cert this year, and we were trying to keep things going and talk to landlords to keep them in them properties while they did their leaving cert. This is the real face, and I don't have to tell Liam and the team about that. They know that. They're seeing that every day. From the point of view of medical issues, just one particular case that came up in regards to, I'm not in Fingal, in another local authority, but I'm dealing with it because the person lives in Balbriggan. He's blind. His wife has mobility issues. But the other local authority that I'm dealing with has told them that he's nowhere to go. Not Fingal. But what I say is, the reason why I say that to you now is that there's a conversation between the 4 local authorities, and maybe if we can look at some kind of specialised accommodation for people in them positions. Because we're going to deal with the medical priority list. Councillor Donnelly has a motion, and we will deal with it separately. And then there's a suggestion around single fathers and single mothers as well that find themselves in homelessness. But single fathers to have access to their children, they don't have anywhere to bring them if they're in emergency accommodation. Because as Councillor Haughey has said, there is issues in some places. There is issues in some places. You don't want to bring children into that. So I have a suggestion that the 4 local authorities could come up with a hub in each area that you could go and bring your children to, spend some quality time with your children, because that's going to make an enormous improvement to the mental health of the parent that's in that emergency accommodation. And once again, thank you very much for your hard work.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn coming forward with suggestions, which is great. Councillor Patrick Quinlan.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you, Liam and the team, for the report. Very quickly, I would just like to outline that in the report on Objective 3, the objective is prevention. It says that these actions aim to focus on prevention and early integrated planning to ensure individuals receive the necessary support and resources to maintain stable housing and avoid homelessness. I'd like to draw the Chamber's attention to the Homeless Performance Report published for quarter 1 2025, published on gov.ie. It shows that for the Dublin region that there was 84 presentations to local authorities, 10 were families, 74 were singles, they were just leaving direct provision. It also states separately that 62 presentations were made, 4 were families and 58 were singles. They only arrived into Ireland in the last 6 months. Family reunification presentations totalled out at 29. It has to be said, nearly every single member in the Chamber present here today, bar 1 or 2 who might hold similar views and whisper quietly to their family and friends in private, are perfectly happy with this. The fact is, hang on, we'll get to that. In the Chief Executive's report that we're going to come up to next, it says, that's the report for July, it says on page 75 that there was 14 homeless HAP tenancies comprising 9 homeless preventions and 4 who exited emergency accommodation and 1 from direct provision. I thought people leaving direct provision weren't entitled to any of those types of state supports, but yeah, here we are with the report in front of us that it's very much on point to the point of homelessness in the country. I'll continue talking. Also on page 76, a very useful graphic has been provided by the Chief Executive showing that there was 85 homeless assessments took place for the month of July. Of this, estates to our economic migrants, 4 are family reunification, leaving direct provision. The highest category is 23. Of that, it's nearly 30% of all assessments that took place in the county over the course of the month.
Time's up, sorry. Your time is up. You're not speaking on mic. Okay, Councillor Dean Mulligan is called next. Councillor Dean Mulligan. Councillor, you're speaking out of turn.
Sorry, I just, I want my 2 minutes.
Councillor, you're totally out of order. You're totally out of order. You're not allowed to do that.
Mayor, can I
have 2 minutes.
Exactly.
I allow latitude, but you abused it totally there. Abused it. So I'm going to Councillor Mulligan. Thank you.
Yeah, I suppose all human beings who have blood running through their veins or made homeless deserve to be treated equally in terms of the policy and processes in this country. So, you know, the strategy deals with anyone presenting as homelessness as their needs are met, as they're human beings living, residing and contributing to this country. But what I will say is that there are a few cases I've been dealing with people in emergency accommodation for multiple years, particularly single people. Families seem to be dealt with. While it's catastrophic for families, it's really, really difficult. There's no, but I find a lot when I'm dealing with particularly single males that they sometimes end up in emergency accommodation for longer periods of time. And although I'm also dealing with a lot of families who are living in the Dublin city centre and sending their children to local primary and secondary schools in Swords, and you know they are getting public transport multiple times a day to support their children coming and going, sometimes 2 bus journeys. So it would be amazing. While the DRHA do a great job as much as they can, the process of emergency accommodation and where they are located is a difficulty. And I would love if we could ascertain even temporary facilities in all around the county in any way, shape or form, if we can ascertain, if we have any properties or even renting hotel rooms, or whatever the case may be, using any surplus monies to give people who are in desperate need appropriate emergency accommodations, because dealing with a lot of cases where people are choosing to rough sleep rather than ring the free phone number because they just don't want to enter temporary emergency accommodations. And it's getting worse year on year, and it's not the council's fault. The staff in homeless services are amazing to deal with in terms of getting the paperwork done, the assessments done with the Simon community. I can't fault them for that, but there is a long way to go. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you. Councillor Helen Redwood.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to raise a controversy which is developed in the local area around the application for the homeless hub in Mount View Road, Dublin 15. It's a very recent application, and so you know, it wasn't possible for the you know, for the people who drew up the plan that we've been discussing to include, because it wasn't known at the time. But it's, you know, I do think that it's pertinent to this because I think Fingal, you know, we need to ask Fingal to delay the decision on this planning application for various reasons, and not least to consider other options. You know, it's a very...
Sorry to interrupt you. I'm not sure if you can comment on the live planning application. Go ahead there. You're asking for a live planning application to
well,
be
I suppose I'm
whatever.
making a...
But go on. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but that's the situation.
Okay. Well, I think certainly I need to reference Councillor Quinlan's recent remarks there. You know, there's been a deliberate campaign of disinformation in the area where Councillor Quinlan and his friends have been putting out information that this development was going to be for iPass and so on and so on. And they've been stirring up division and racism in the local area. Clearly doesn't care about local homeless families at all, but is jumping on this issue in order to sort of create the sort of racism that he espouses. But I think that, you know, the Homeless Action Plan does highlight the way that, you know, there has been an increase that we all know about, for single people, for families and so on. And so, you know, it's not that we would oppose the, you know, the development of a homeless hub in the area, but it's typical. What's happened is that this planning application is reflecting the sort of ad hoc development of homeless provision, where private developers somehow decide where and when there's going to be homeless provision, rather than it coming through a considered plan like we have here, which takes into account, you know, the needs of the local area. Maybe, you know, social and affordable housing would be the better option here.
Okay, time.
Okay, so I think that, you know, there are options there. I think it'd be important for the council to intervene, to look at the possibility of buying that site themselves and running council facilities there, whether it be social and affordable housing, whether it be a medical centre or something like that, but taking into account the needs of the local area.
Okay, time.
Okay, thank
Sorry.
you.
Thank you. So, Councillor Breda Hannafy.
Thank you. And I just want to recognise the hard work that is done by everybody in the housing department. But I would just like to raise again, it's something has to be done for families that are a long time in homeless hubs, that are a couple of years in hotels and hubs. There's specifically one family, I think I might have mentioned before, Paul, they went into homeless hub when the children were starting secondary school just before, and now they're still there while the children have done their junior cert. and the mother is very worried about her son. He's becoming aggressive. So you can't begin to imagine how those children are, how they mentally travelling such long distances to try and get to school. They're late for school. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor J.K. Onamwera.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank my colleague, Councillor Butler, for calling for a presentation on this. As we can see how evocative and the subject is, I see a lot of colleagues, feel the need to actually make a contribution to the subject. Now there's an opportunity to actually listen to the presentation and to respond. Of course, there's hardly any councillor here who probably doesn't have homelessness and housing as one of the key priorities that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I know that the situation is deplorable for a lot of families, and many that I'm personally aware of. And I think it's very important that we're taking time to review the whole situation and perhaps, adopting the homeless action plan for Fingal County Council would be very important, that, we are addressing some of those key issues, such as, families that are living completely outside of the area. They have children schooling in a particular area, for example, Dublin 15, but now they've been pushed to maybe a homeless hub or facility in the Dublin city centre. And what that means is that they have to travel all the way to Dublin 15 and have to hang around because they probably have up to 2 to 3 children, some that have to finish school a little bit early, and then they have to wait till the rest have to finish as well. I also have to thank some of my colleagues here that have raised the need for a temporary refuge where people can hang out, especially families, homeless families, and people who have a need to hang out in such areas. But we'll find out that these areas are also targeted, and people who get to use those places are often looked at as saying, why are they there? And I think that is a major problem as well. I know families that have been targeted, by drug dealers because maybe their children are a little bit older in the area and they are now living outside of the area, fracturing families. So
Okay, thank you. So Councillor John Walsh.
Thanks, Mayor. I plan to stay on time. Firstly, can I thank Liam and the team for the report, and again, just want to pay tribute to the compassion and dedication of members of the Housing Department. Like other councillors, I deal with a great deal on a daily basis. They do their absolute best in incredibly difficult circumstances. Just a couple of comments. Actually, I had a question, just so that it wasn't referenced in the report. I just had a question about whether there had been any evidence of the impact of the tenant in situ scheme in preventing homelessness. Just noting, I think it's important to have that evidence if we can. I fully agree with the emphasis on prevention. It's obviously much better to prevent people becoming homeless than have to address the situation when people are in homeless hubs. My personal experience is I certainly deal with as many families who are homeless as single person individuals, and very similar to Councillor Onamwera. I'm familiar with families who where the children are in school in Dublin 15, they're homeless and they're in homeless hubs in the city centre, and they're commuting to and from school more than an hour each way every day, and or every school day, and that's a really incredibly difficult situation. I think we do need to, and that's why local homeless hubs and local housing of homeless people, local temporary accommodation is really essential. I also would just note that it's important that reports are not quoted out of context. In relation to single adults, the report says the figures highlight a persistent and disproportionate vulnerability to homelessness among single-person households. I think if we look back on previous reports, we'll find that there was a persistent vulnerability to homelessness by single-person households for a long period, and that's not driven primarily by migration. So I think it's important that reports are not cherry-picked in an inaccurate way they need to be read on the round, and that homeless people are not used as pawns by some far-right councillors for their own agenda. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. So, Councillor John Smith.
Thank you. Firstly, again, like so many before me already, I want to thank the team for all the work they do. It's been incredible. I found you very easy to work with, and when we're facing with dire situations for families and single individuals, you have been incredibly helpful. And I think, look, it's reflected in the amount of compliments you're getting here tonight. It must really feel like you're putting your finger in a crack of a leak and the walls are caving in around you. I've had the privilege of working alongside some of the allied or the approved housing bodies before, but nothing prepared me for the level of cases when I became a councillor in December. Within a few weeks, it was unbelievable. And I was tempted to bring in 15,747 coins and throw them across the council chamber today, because those numbers feel meaningless now. Like, they feel, it's disgusting, it's disgraceful. And it is hard to sit here and compliment you when it feels like the policy that is going on at central government is to play in this. And we've a Focus Ireland only a few weeks ago highlighting that unless that policy changes, this is just going to get worse and worse. And we're nitpicking now at the difficulties within the homeless or within the emergency accommodation, and we have to do that. It feels like this is going to become the absolute norm going forward. We need a HICWA or a similar regulatory body to be able to investigate them and protect them, to ensure that there's proper safeguarding and that there's proper quality standards. But please, and I plead, I'm literally pleading with the government parties here today, your party's policy is not working. Please change it, because you're making these people's jobs untenable. It can't go on like this. And my voice is breaking because the amount of people I've spoken to in the last few weeks who have literally cried in our arms in our office a stone's throw from here, thinking that they have failed as parents because they can't put a roof over their family's head. It's not their fault. They haven't failed. This policy is failing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thanks very much, and thanks a lot for the report. I did know, and I really don't want to be critical, but there was several pages of the report which tells us what has been done. I suppose it is just a sign of how difficult this issue is to solve. That there's more telling us what has been done than what will be done. But homelessness is really difficult for residents in Dublin 15, and the vast majority of them have to travel outside the area. It is really difficult for those people, particularly the young children, who suffer in school because of travelling from generally the city centre back out to Blanchestown to keep going to the same school, because that's the only continuity they have in their life. So you have parents trying to bring their children on a bus every day from the city centre out to Blanchestown, and I'm sure you've heard all these stories yourselves. You deal with them all. We deal with the few that come to each of us individually. You get them all. And I actually hate even uttering these words, but we really need to look at the standards in homeless accommodation, because we've come to a situation now where people are actually looking to build homeless hubs, which is an awful indictment on our society. And, you know, I think whether we find it absolutely heartbreaking or not, we need to have standards. And Breda just showed me a picture there of a woman that's in a homeless hub in Chicor she had to go to from Blanchestown, and there's a double bed and 2 sets of bunk beds in the room, and they're there years. It's just not good enough. There's no dignity for people. It's got the problems that we're building up as a nation from these people being forced to live this way are going to be massive. So, you know, thanks for the report. I know everybody is doing their best, but it's just not, we need to do better. It's not good enough. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That appears to be all the speakers. So, I don't know if management would like to come back with some responses.
Thanks, Chair.
Someone else, sorry. Councillor Ellen Troy.
Very much. Can you hear me? Yes, thanks very much. I'll be as quick as I can. I'm very heartened to hear so many people wanting to speak on this issue. It's just absolutely appalling. Since I've become a councillor, I can't believe what I hear day in and day out and the emails that I get constantly about the situation of housing. So immediately something just needs to be done. It's an emergency, it's a crisis like never before. We were able to pull all the stops out for COVID and all of that at the time. So we just need to do it. We're not looking for a cure for cancer. It's not unsolvable. It's actually very solvable, and it's driving me crazy. And actually, a Freedom of Information question, 12th of February 2024, we were told that there was 78 vacant houses in Fingal. And then through another FOI, in April 2025, we discovered there was 323. So how, as a question, I'm not taking away from anything that the council have done. I'm sure you're doing your very best with the circumstances that you're in. But there's something seriously wrong, and the public need to know how could it quadruple? How could the figures multiply by 4? That's all I've got to say. Thanks.
Okay, so go to Liam.
Thanks, Chair. So, first of all, thanks for your support. Generally, as always, you've always been very supportive as a council in relation to our plans and programmes in relation to dealing with the various issues we have to do in homelessness. Obviously, being up there as a priority and recognising that we have Pauline, a very strong and robust team led by Pauline, dealing with homelessness in the county. I'll just run through all of your queries, just make a few comments at the end then in relation to the main points on the plan, what it is that FCC is working to do to deal with this significant problem. So, Councillor Burchell, with regard to your comments on notice of terminations, registration with the RTB and enforcement and statutory declarations, we're linked in with the RTB, the board, to deal with all of that, which falls within their remit under the legislation. We discussed with Councillor Ahi previously at the SPC on rough sleeping. Your area, Councillor, there are two people that we're aware of who are rough sleeping. So it's very important that people link in with us when they first become aware of rough sleepers. There's a very significant outreach programme there to provide advice and support for people. That is to link in with them to see if they have specific needs. There's no need to sleep outdoors in the county, so there is accommodation available. It may not be something that they are looking for, but we can provide the right advice and support for them, and Simon lead out on that on our behalf. They have the contract for outreach in Fingal. Sometimes, unfortunately, financial supports given to rough sleepers will encourage them to stay in a particular area, so that's an issue that we will work through, and they'll get good advice and support on that. But the key point is that you link in with us and let us know if you have concerns about people in your relevant area who might be sleeping outdoors. Okay, Councillor Mulville, you referenced standards among other things, but the plan is quite strong on standards, and that process will continue as part of the current and previous plans. Thanks for your comments, Councillor Corkery. Councillor Quinn, you need to link in and let us know in relation to the various families you've referenced there. It's very important that we have the private rented accommodation service, so that's a key role for us to make sure the standards are maintained in the private accommodation sector. And the medical issues, I've referenced those with the Dublin City Council, and I'll come back to you in relation to specific points you made there. We give a priority to people specifically around homelessness in our allocation scheme, so it's very important that all of the points get joined up when people come to us looking for housing support, and medical priority is a key part of that, so we can provide a lot of help and assistance to people in that regard. Councillor Quinlan, you referenced a number of issues there. We report, I suppose, on everything we do in the CE report every month. We report on presentations, the reasons for presentations, and direct provision presentations and family reunification do form part of the number of people who present to us looking for advice and support. To date this year, we've got 8 family reunifications in Fingal, and a number of people leaving direct provision. And what happens there is people get status in the country, and from time to time they are offered alternative accommodation further away from where they're currently living. They don't take that up. They're legally entitled to present to us. We are working with those people as part of a process where they have a legal entitlement, and that's the work that we do to try and help them provide advice and support to them to make sure that their needs are met in conjunction with everyone else. And we report on that every month to all of you so that you're clear on the work that we do. Councillor Mulligan, on the long-term homelessness, we have a project in play at the moment, and some of you referenced this, about the length of time people are in emergency accommodation. We're working on that. It's a current project that we're dealing with. Pauline is doing a lot of work on that with her team to identify people who are spending quite a bit of time in EA and to find options for them to move on. So that's a very important project that we're currently involved on. Councillor Redwood, I'm not in a position to comment on the planning proposal for Dublin 15. We weren't consulted on that, neither were the DRHE, so as it's a planning issue currently, I'm not in a position to comment on that at this point in time. Councillor Hannafy, I note your point in relation to families who are a long time in the end. I've been linked in with you directly on that myself, so we're working through those issues that you're bringing to us. The tenants issue scheme is referenced in the plan, Councillor Walsh. It's referenced and will be available insofar as the budgetary parameters are observed there. So if we can use that, we will. Obviously, any option that we can use to make inroads in dealing with people's issues. Councillor Smith, you mentioned central government policy, working on all of that. It's important, probably, as part of central government policy, to bear in mind also that we have significant housing delivery, significant social housing and affordable housing and cost rental housing delivery in the pipeline. So there's a huge amount of work being done. All of that will feed into dealing with the homelessness issue in the county, and you will see that there will be significant progress in relation to that in the pipeline coming through in the coming years. Councillor Donnelly, likewise, in relation to new supply on EA in Dublin 15. We've actually taken on stock in Dublin 15, both temporary and emergency accommodation stock. We've equally taken on some in the Swords area. So every option that's open to us, we're open to looking at that, working with the DRHE and dealing with it. Councillor Troy referenced the voids numbers. There was an anomaly in the way the voids were counted, so we count casual voids as void stock, and the new stock coming in obviously is void but not categorised, so there was a categorisation issue that's been rectified. I can go through it with you and explain exactly how it changed from one to the other, if that's okay. So I suppose my main points is that I appreciate your support. The supply coming through is key to what we're trying to do, and the work that the team is engaged on is key to providing supports for people. We appreciate your support to us. We don't want people spending any longer than is absolutely necessary in emergency accommodation, so we're absolutely focused on everything that we can do to make that change for them. So I'd appreciate your support in adopting the plan. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Okay, just like to add a few words, very brief. Just like to, I suppose, praise the work of the housing team and Liam Burke in particular, and the homeless team all across the 4 councils in trying to deal with this very, very difficult issue with, I suppose, limited resources. You know, they could do it more and they need more homes, but it's a tough job to do, and it's very tough on the families, of course. But I want to acknowledge the work of the council staff who do this day in, day out, and it must take a toll on people, and I want to commend them for that and acknowledge that. So I have a resolution here now to read out to agree this plan, and then we proposer and seconder, and hopefully get agreement, so I'm going to read it out. So draft Homeless Action Plan 2025-2027 resolution. This council resolves to, in accordance with section 37 of the Housing Miscellaneous Provisions Act 2009, to adopt the Homeless Action Plan 2025-2027 as presented to the council on the 7th of July 2025. Anyone like to proposed by Kieran Dennison and seconded by Councillor J.K. Onimwera. Is that agreed? Agreed. On now to the Chief Executive's report, and I'm going to go straight to the Chief Executive for a comment on that. Thank you.
Members, before I start, I just want to add my own thanks to Liam and Pauline and the entire team in working with the homeless section in Fingal. They do tremendous work, and I'm very appreciative of all the work they do. So thanks a lot, and I'm glad to see that plan adopted. In terms of the Chief Executive report, it's literally a report of the work of all the departments for the first 6 months of the year. You'll see a lot of activity is underway and completed, and we're well advanced in delivering the work programmes of the county for the year 2025. We're here to take any questions and answer where we can, so happy to give the report to you.
Thank you. Councillor Karina Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Firstly, I just want to commend the Council for a fantastic Flavours of Fingal event in Donabate this weekend. It was absolutely superb, fantastic turnout, very positive feedback from the Donabate community. I'm happy to report everything went very well. The only thing that let us down was the public transport, which we weren't reliant on this time because we had our own bus services. Look, I suppose a couple of questions in the report. Portran Road, the enhancement project. I noticed there seems to be some progress in terms of that scheme. My understanding from the last Chief Executive's report last month was that there was a legal challenge to that scheme. Can I have an update on that? Secondly, I also want to commend the Community Development Department Festival in a Van. Again, fantastic event took place in Donabate and across the county. We had a music festival at Donabate all over the weekend before last, and I want to just commend the Community Development Department. It's really, really successful and great turnout in that as well. And thirdly, Broadmeadow Way, I suppose, look, I'm receiving an awful lot of questions and queries just in relation to the delay in that project. I know there's an awful lot of difficulties in terms of that project, and it's very complex. My understanding is that that project has now been delayed till autumn 2027. I suppose I'm just looking for reassurances. Will that project be delivered by autumn 2027? And finally, I note in the CE report there's mention of a market in Donabate. I'd like to hear some information on that. Sounds very good and looking forward to it. Thank you.
Councillor Dara Butler.
Not going on, so just a few quick thank yous. Obviously, the works at Sword Celtic that are coming to a conclusion now. It's brilliant that going into the winter months again, the kids will be able to travel to and from the club safely, so thank you very much for that. The works at Ushers Lake, down the Ward Valley, the Cascades, etc. Locals love it, getting great praise, so thank you to Kevin Halpy and his team for that. Just to mention of Swords Main Street, again, I'll just ask, please, can the local councillors get a briefing on that before the plans are finalised, before they go any further. The Swords Cultural Quarter, thank you for the update that went out last week. It's great to see the progress being made. The Saturdays Farmers Market is going really well. Public have really bought into it. The main question I get asked is, can we have it every week next summer? Just to plant that seed. Yeah, Flavours of Fingal, massive, massive success. Families going around, all the smiling faces. We really do need to do everything we can to keep it going next summer. My own young lad loved the Birds of Prey guy, especially over near the Green car park. He's a favourite every year. Just to thank Mr. Barnes and the events team for that. To thank Director Mary T. Daly also for the fantastic concert series. Has to be one of the best. Has to be, I'd say, the best outdoor venue in the country. Fantastic venue, so well run. A great spread of concerts from Charlie XCX for the kids and the legendary Neil Young for the likes of myself and everyone in between. If you're taking requests, I think the Cure are on tour next year. Just the cups, yeah, the cups are a great thing. Someone told me they were stopping the kids going around collecting them. If they put £2 deposit on a cup, it doesn't matter if a kid comes back with 50 of them, they should pay up. And congratulations to the Brackraven Pipe Band, All-Ireland champions for a second year in a row. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mary McCamry.
Thank you very much. A few thank yous again, same as other people. The festival in a van in Mulhuddard, it was a great success, and the official opening of Churchfields as well just recently was absolutely fantastic with the mayor there. And of course, the Flavours of Fingal, I go every year. I go on the 2 days, and I just absolutely love it, and it gets great feedback. It's a great event, and I hope it continues. I'd like to thank them, the council too, for the tickets to the Malahide concerts. Great success, and we had a great meeting here, some of the councillors, with the LCDC see in this chamber recently, which was quite successful and should continue that cooperation between the two. And also would like to say thank you to the council, especially the sports department, for the healthy steps which taken place in Millennium Park. We started off on a very rainy Thursday with 5 people, and last Thursday we had nearly 40. So that's great success. I just want to ask 2 questions. Page 55, it says Dunsogly Estate is to be taken in charge. As far as I know, Dunsogly Estate has been taken in charge for years, or if it hasn't, you've been doing an awful lot of work in there. And another thing is the money that you got from the bus stop enhancements. You have a list of 20 locations. Could I have a list of those, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Helen Redwood.
Thank you. Yes, just a question on the planning and capital programme. So I wondered if we could have some feedback, please, on the 200 million grant application for infrastructure development in respect of the Dunsink land bank. Has there been any progress? Has the application been accepted? Do you have any idea of timelines and so on? Thank you.
Councillor Cahill Haughey.
Yeah, thanks for the report, and similar to what other people have said, well done on organising the Malahide concerts. They were brilliant this year, and as has been said, the Heineken draft reusable cups were great, but I know some of the other vendors didn't have the same facilities, and I see that that's going to be brought in next year, which I think is great, and it will reduce waste. Just a question on the page 337 of the pack, Portmarnock Railway Bridge and Pedestrian and Cycle Improvement Works, which is the Drumney Manor to Portmarnock Dart Station. We see here it says that the legal access agreement with the landowner to the east has come to a halt for reasons beyond the council's control. We've heard the same thing at the last 2 or 3 Howth Malahide meetings. I heard from someone on the management company that they said that there's been a meeting scheduled with whoever that landowner is in early July. Just want to confirm if that's true. Has that meeting happened yet? Because it seemed to be going really well, and then the last few months we've been told that this engagement has stopped. And I did put a rep in asking, you know, if the engagement stops indefinitely, is the project just going to be held up or whatever? But if I get any clarity on that and engagements with the landowners on either side, and it's a very much needed project which I hope can progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Boland.
I just want to acknowledge a couple of thank yous to the councillors here, and to sort of, I suppose, put a positive spin on things today as well. All day, sometimes we do need good news, and like some of the other councillors have said, Flavours has been fantastic. The concerts in Malahide have been fantastic, and it has been a very good summer for Fingal, which I would like to commend all of you and the executive for this. None of this would have happened without that. I'd also like to reference within the CE report, you spoke about Rush Tidy Towns, and you announced that they had been part or finalists of the All-Ireland competition, and I want to acknowledge the great work that they did in my constituency, and to be praised for you know, being part of a finalist of an All-Ireland programme. So I just wanted to especially say thanks to them, and seeing that we have all spoken earlier in this chamber today of the good work of tidy towns around Fingal, we should particularly acknowledge them. I'd also like to acknowledge the Lusk Black Raven Pipe Band for their recent win over the weekend, and just to say that you know, sometimes we do need to celebrate the positive in here, because there is a lot of negative, and I would just like to say a massive thanks to everybody for their work on the summer programmes, and more to come. Thank you.
Just to briefly follow through on that, I met Councillor Mark Boland at the festival in a van in Rush at St. Catherine's, and it was great. And that was replicated all across the county. There was a great little buzz there, and the local communities all coming out of their houses and going to the event, and I really enjoyed it and met a lot of people I knew. Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thank you, and thanks for the report. I'd like to thank the Operations Department for replacing the footpaths in Lahunda. There was a young man that uses a walking aid that had difficulty getting to his house, so he's delighted, and thanks very much for that. And Clonsilla residents are very unhappy with the time for the consultation on the old schoolhouse master plan. They're looking for the consultation process to be postponed to September. I think at the very least, could we move it out by a couple of weeks? And lastly, councillors got a presentation on 21 new proposed houses in Fort Lawn, which is fantastic. Today I'm hearing that to deliver these 21 houses, 4 houses will have to be demolished, which wasn't mentioned in the presentation at all. And I'm really, really surprised and dismayed if that is the case, because it wasn't mentioned to the councillors at that briefing. Thank you.
Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of the staff and all the departments. There's a phenomenal amount of amazing stuff going on in the county, but just want to mention the Malahide concerts. They're absolutely brilliant and great to see the reusable cups. On page 42, there's a picture of Borough Claremont beach cleanup from the 23rd of the 6th. I had put in a motion about having, and I've done this every year, having treating our beaches during the summer at weekends as events. And you know, the report I got was that there is no management plans for public beaches. But next weekend it's going to be 23 degrees, and if we see the kind of carnage down in Borough Beach that we saw 2 weekends ago, it's not acceptable. It's not good enough for the people living there. We have bylaws around alcohol consumption in public places, and they're not being enforced by anyone. That really needs to be addressed. If the council could look at that before next weekend. I think it's going to be sunny from Friday, so it's not fair that people living there and in the wider area can't just go down and enjoy their local beach. And also just to congratulate the Lusk Black Raven Pipe Band. I had the great honour of being the chief in Howth for the competition, and it was very emotional and great to see so many young people out and you know, just talented musicians. So well done to Lusk representing Fingal.
Okay, we've about 20 minutes left, so if there's anyone who wants to accept the manager's report on their motions, can you let Ciara and Mary Egan know here? We'll deal with it later, one by one, subject to the meeting's agreement. So we'll go on to the next councillor, John Smith. Councillor Smith.
I'll be brief with that in mind. I'm not going to compliment you on absolutely everything. You don't need it, especially in terms of flavours of Fingal. They're well aware of how good that was. The only criticisms that came up was someone complained to me about there not being Guinness on sale. So if that's the biggest thing we can be criticised about, and I can agree with him, I'd happily take a pint. But yeah, that's a lot to be said for how well it went. I second Councillor McCamley's request for the 20 locations in each area in terms of the site improvements for the NTA. If that could be circulated to all councillors, it would be great. And just in terms of the Skerries community car, I've been working closely with a couple of groups within Swords about looking for creative solutions to their transporting issues. We met together, and one of the things around the community car would be one solution to that. I just want to know, I've spoken to Local Link already, and they're pretty encouraged by the idea, and just if there would be any plans to expand that to other areas. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Patrick Quinlan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chief Executive, for the report. There's like no one's going to deny Fingal County Council does do a lot of good work in terms of like the arts and the creatives and stuff like that, and running summer functions for the family and kids, and all that's good and positive stuff. I'm here to highlight the stuff that nobody wants to talk about. Again, in the Chief Executive's report, I know Liam already answered a couple of questions there about the reasons for homelessness on page 76. I'd like to highlight that leaving direct provision is the highest reason for homelessness in the constituency, as reported by the Chief Executive's report for last month. I'd also like to ask where are they going to get housed? How are they going to get housed? Is that going to be by Fingal County Council, an approved housing body? Will it be through HAP tenancies? As well then, obviously in relation to the infill site at Fortlawn, I've too been contacted by constituents today who are concerned that their houses are going to have to be levelled. They purported to me that someone knocked on the door from Fingal County Council and said, your house is going to have to be levelled for this work to go ahead. That's a great cause for concern. I am concerned about that, and like that as well, I'd like to get a copy of the presentation that was given to councillors on the day. And yeah, I do have to make the point that like we cannot solve the country's the government's homelessness crisis that Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, the Green Party last term, now the government being held together by independents, have created while entertaining the idea that we just have foreign nationals just arriving into the country, say I'm homeless, and then we just open up the States coffers.
Councillor John Walsh.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of thank yous first. I didn't get to flavours, but I want to thank the events team for all of their work throughout the year. They've really done a fantastic job. I've got to a number of events, particularly the Fingal Proms in Dublin 15, the Bridges Day event, and both were fabulous. So very well done. Also, thanks to the operations team for kind of prompt rollout of benches, pollinator beds, planting, all very welcomed by residents in my area. I just want to raise concerns that have come to me around the old schoolhouse master plan in Clonsilla. I've been waiting for that for quite a long time. It is happening in July. There's concerns from a number of community groups and residents that it's happening over the summer. The time frame is relatively short. They obviously requested a rescheduling. Certainly, I think there's a very strong case for it to be extended. There will be a lot of interest in that, and it would be a great shame if people felt they didn't have the opportunity to contribute, or they were disenfranchised from it because they were away. A couple of other quick things. More Bins have decided to raise this under the Chief Executive's report. I've had a lot of requests for more solar compactor bins. They were really successful in controlling littering in Castleknock around the Phoenix Park. I know Ms Daly mentioned some areas that don't want the bins. I have several areas I can give her that will definitely take them if there's neighbourhoods that are refusing bins in Clonsilla and Ongar and elsewhere. So thanks very much. Thanks very much for the report.
Councillor Siobhan Shovlin.
Thank you. Also similar to Councillor Walsh and Councillor Donnelly, I've got correspondence just around the Clonsilla Schoolhouse Master Plan, and the timing of that consultation just isn't really ideal with schools being closed, people off on holidays, and I do think we would have a lot more engagement on that if the timing was differently, and any movement around that would be really welcome. If anyone would be able to provide me with an update on Laurel Lodge Playground in terms of the commencement date for this, as I know there is concern that if the weather deteriorates as we get in towards autumn, that it might be delayed even further, and they have waited a considerable length of time from when they first started out their petition for that. Also, the Royal Canal Greenway, just I note in the Chief Executive's report, there's no real indication maybe of when that might go to An Bord Pleanála. Have we got any idea based on how things are currently going around when that might be ready for a planning application, as we are getting a lot of questions and the answers is quite similar every time I go back to residents. Just it would be good if we had an idea on that. And again, just thanks for the great work in operations. It's great to see so much work underway locally. Also had compliments on the Learn to Cycle facility on Millennium Park. So there are lots of positive things happening. Thanks.
Councillor Owen O'Brien.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Chief Executive, for the report. Yeah, just to kind of acknowledge the comments around the Malahide Castle concerts. Very successful, very positive feedback across the board, and as kind of one of the more local councillors to the area, you know, I tend to find myself in the firing line when something goes wrong. So, you know, I do just want to acknowledge the work of Paul Barnes and particularly Niamh Russell and their teams in assisting councillors and members of the public with the queries as issues arose over the course of the 7 concerts. So well done. All under the housing section, I just want to query was something I was asking at budget time last year. I see positively their rent arrears have reduced by nearly $1 million there since January 2025. I wonder, should we flesh that report out slightly for future reports, just in terms of the totals and the amount of accounts in arrears and so forth? And if you have that to hand, I'd be interested to hear that, what the figure currently stands at, because it's positive to see work being done on it. But if I recall correctly from the budget time last year, there's a significant figure still outstanding. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor John Burchell.
Thanks, Chief Executive and Mayor. I wasn't going to come in the interest of time, hoping we get to the motions, but I just want to respond to Councillor Quinlan's tiresome targeting of migrant people for the housing crisis. It's not the fault of migrant people, it's the fault of capitalism and the parties who represent the interests of the capitalist class there. So if we do want to close our borders, we would should close them to vulture funds, speculative capital who have barreled in here to feast on the misery of the housing crisis. We never hear that from the far right because fundamentally they represent the rich. Chair, he doesn't get to speak over me. He doesn't get to speak over me. Chair.
I'm chairing the meeting. Okay, so just can you hold for a minute, Councillor Burchell, please?
Okay.
What's your point of order? And it has to be a point of order. It has to be a point of order. He's asked at the table. He's sitting down. Right. So what's your point of order? That's it. That's the point of order. Okay, Grant. So go back to John Burchell. Thank you.
So, as I was saying, we would close our borders to international vulture funds, speculative capital, and that would do a huge amount to address the housing crisis. The last point I'll make is Neil Young played a great gig in Glastonbury, but he was better in Malahide, even in the rain. Thanks.
Okay, so now Councillor Malachy Quinn. Malachy Quinn.
We'll return back to the Chief Executive's report. Look, there's so many things that we will discuss over the next year. But when we get to this time of the year, we have to acknowledge the great work that's done by the council and by Paul Barnes and the events team, the concerts in Malahide and the concerts coming up in Swords as well. I just want to, if I can just highlight three very positive things that have happened in the last month. One is the installation, and it seemed like a small thing, but it's a big thing, the installation of baby changing facilities in Skerries and the toilets, the clarification that there will be in some in Balbriggan, and I'd look for the operations team to look to do that across the whole county. Very important. Lots of parental leave and maternity leave now, the good weather. They want to bring their newborns out, and we'd like to be able to bring them to the various parks and beaches and have them baby changing facilities. I just want to welcome the crossing at the Skullcormac Educate Together complex in Balbriggan. It's very much needed and very much welcome, and look forward to September that the 800 children will now have a safe crossing to the shopping centre at Tesco's. Thanks very much for that.
Okay, Councillor Jimmy Kieran.
I'd like to thank the Chief Executive for the report, and I'd like to highlight how it's wonderful to see so many of my colleagues complimenting all the various work that's been done on the beaches, the parks, the events and so on and so forth, and luckily we can look forward to that continuing next year. I would also like to compliment the Chief Executive and the entire team for welcoming everybody who presents at Fingal for assistance, regardless of where they're from or who they are, because that is what we owe people in this county, and I make no apology. I'm proud that we do it and that we do it well, and I please encourage you to continue to do it despite the rhetoric that might be brought out from time to time. Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll go back to the Chief Executive and the team for responses. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to all the councillors for your acknowledgement of all the teams right across the organisation. Indeed, the events were magnificent. Flavours of Fingal was really popular yesterday in the good weather. Just to say, I arrived at the same time as the Mayor, around 11 o'clock, just as it was opening. I heard comments about they were parking 20 cars a minute. I witnessed 6 buses that were full arriving from right across the county, so it isn't just a local event. And I think it was enjoyed by all. Now, I know if the weather wasn't as good, it mightn't have looked so well on the day, but there were smiles all around, in fairness. So, and it's similarly with the concerts. I mean, very unusual to have 7 concert events in what is, a medium-sized town without complaints coming in. seems to be very well supported by the people who live in Malahide and the businesses in Malahide and everybody who attends from near and far. So thanks to the team for their work. It's a long run of concerts, seven events, and then followed by Flavours of Fingal. So it is an arduous task for the team involved. Very long hours, so we're always very grateful to them. And again, I know you've acknowledged right across the organisation in terms of the work programme, and it's good to acknowledge that work. I think the year has started well, 6 months of work showing very good delivery, so thanks to all of the teams involved in that. And some of the work is hidden, not as glamorous maybe as events and delivering projects, but you did acknowledge the work of the homeless teams and other teams right across the organisation who do tremendous work as well. Just to start with Councillor Johnson, I'm going to ask Matthew to come in on the Portrane Road. The festival in a van right across the county is great to bring arts to local areas, to encourage people to get involved in the arts. So just to acknowledge that as a good way of spreading the work we do right across the county. I suppose on the Broadmeadow Way, we could focus on it's delayed, when is it going to open. There's good work, strong work going on that project at the moment and at all times. We've been meeting with Irish Rail and others to try and advance it more quickly, so just give us the time to work on it. There's work that can happen at both ends of Malahide and Newbridge outside of the planning permission period, so we're doing what we can to pull every lever to keep it progressing. So don't lose faith, just bear with us while we steer that through. But it isn't easy, never was, and just to acknowledge the work of the team on it. Yes, there will be a market in Donabate, so I'll ask John to come back to you maybe offline with the details on that. The farmers market, the food circle was there in Flavours of Fingal. I love the new branding. Fingal Food Circle, really apt in terms of the circular economy, as well as branding it with the Fingal name. Just to say, the people involved in the organisation committee and the chair, they're very anxious to keep it going and making sure it goes from strength to strength. And the extension of the food market to Donabate is an example of that. But they think the market is a success in Swords, looking for a few tweaks to timing and everything else, but generally working well. I'm not going to go through all the projects that Councillor Butler mentioned, but thank you for giving a shout out to each of them. On Swords Main Street, of course, we'll be consulting with councillors in relation to that in advance. But again, a lot happening in Swords at the moment, and we will bring the information to you. But just to be reassured, we know there's a lot happening, and we're working to make sure that that's managed to the best way possible. So a lot of work happening there. On the cups at the concerts, they were a great success, and they were there at Flavours of Fingal yesterday, and I was amazed to see young kids going off and collecting the cups from the ground, which is a good sign of success. And we have to commend MCD for allowing it to be introduced in Malahide, because it isn't an easy thing to have introduced, so you have to start somewhere. Great work by the environment team, working with operations to secure that, and the events team. So we'll build on that, but great to have it started in the events. Just to acknowledge Churchfield's Councillor McCamley, yeah, it's great to see that park opened. We want it minded, so hopefully we can work with the local community to make sure it is. But more importantly, it just shows you that development is progressing apace. And good to see a Dublin 15 councillor out in Newbridge House over the weekend. And again, I won't go through all of the events. On Dunsink is land zoned for housing. In terms of the infrastructure it needs, we're working on that at the moment. There is no grant application yet, but we'd hope to secure government funding to deliver infrastructure there. So very much work in progress, and when we have adequate information, we'll be briefing councillors. It's a big land bank, and we need to plan it properly. So again, it'll take a number of months to have more information to bring to councillors.
Sorry, can we extend the meeting by 5 or 10 minutes so the Chief Executive can finish her responses? Thank you.
Councillor High, on the Portmarnock Bridge, I had to reschedule that meeting, but it is happening tomorrow, and I'll bring you back an update after the meeting with the landowner after tomorrow. Councillor Boland, again, thanks for your comments. Councillor Donnelly, on the Clonsilla Master Plan, I appreciate July and August are summer periods. just be careful if we can't consult during July and August. We could effectively lose 4 months out of the work programme on any project, including the consultation on the Clonsilla Master Plan. I think if we allow adequate time, 4 to 6 weeks, you'd expect to cover people's holidays unless they're away for a very long period. So I just wanted to say that I'd be anxious if we were to take July and August out of a consultation period. We typically don't consult in August or for most of August, but just think about that, and maybe we'll come back to the local councillors in relation to it. The Fort Lawn scheme was presented last week, and the entirety of the scheme was mentioned in the presentation, including the need to demolish 4 houses in order to deliver 21. So happy to give you further information on that again. It was in the presentation, yes. It's on the slides as well. We can go through it afterwards rather than discussing it now, but again, it's a project that's coming. The Part 8 is to be launched in August, but just look out the window here in terms of the demolition of some of the houses on Seatown Road being replaced by 36 apartments. So just be open to it and we can give you further information. On the Borough Beach, I mean, it's not an event. It can't be insured as an event, and also it's not wise to encourage it as an event in terms of the use of Borough Beach in good weather. We'll work with the guards and others to try and manage it. It's a difficult thing, but I know Mary T may want to come in because she's done some good work in recent weeks, but we really need to have people take responsibility for their own behaviour where we can. There's a limit to what we can do in that space, but we do work with the guards and others to try and make it as safe as possible, particularly trying to prevent a lot of alcohol arriving to the beach with the people who are bringing it. So I don't want to understate it. I appreciate it's a significant problem. It's difficult when we arrive there to do the clean-up, but again, only so much we can do in that space. Other councillors have commended us on various things, including the Skerries community car. Councillor Smith, I'd have to check that exactly where the community cars are at the moment, but David may come in on that. More bins we'll take away and consider that in the context of next year's budget, although Mary T has given clarification as to what's available. Laurel Lodge Playground, that and Carduff Park Playground, the contract was awarded at the end of May, so that should be starting pretty soon. We do find contractors take 6 to 8 weeks minimum to mobilise, so expect it soon. I'll ask Matthew to come in on the Royal Canal Way. On rent arrears, we look to provide more information, and just to say we're introducing a payments app to make sure it's as easy as possible for our tenants to pay us. Hopefully that will be getting across the line in the coming weeks. And I think that covers the rest of the queries. But maybe I was remiss of me not to thank councillors for your support on the local property tax, which does give us a good start to preparing next year's budget. I'll just move over from right across the table here.
Yeah, I think Councillor Smith, the community car, that's an arrangement between ourselves and GoCar where they provide the car. And obviously then we have the Skerries Community Council who are involved in being drivers down there. We have looked at expanding the service, but there's obviously costs associated with that. So we're happy to investigate to see can that be expanded, but we have to get the funding for it to be put in place. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Just 2 outstanding issues there for me. The Portrane footpath. So, Councillor Johnson, the tender documents for the appointment of a contractor are expected to issue later this month. So, hopefully see works starting this year on that. And the Royal Canal, yeah, look, we're continuing to work very closely with Waterways Ireland and the NTA, and still on schedule to submit a planning application by the end of the year.
I will circulate, Councillor McCamley, the bus stop enhancement scheme work programme for 2025 that was approved by the NTA at the end of June. So I'll circulate that to all members. It outlines the ones that we're doing in each area, the maintenance work we're doing in each area. With regards to baby changing facilities, Councillor Quinn, we have a number of changing place units in all of the parks, and they all have baby changing facilities in them. Any of the new toilets we've put in also has provision for baby changing. With regards to Skerries is on the programme for replacement, probably 2026, 2027. So the baby changing units will be, or the provision for baby changing will be included in that. With regards to Borough Beach, we would have meetings with the NTA and Garda Síochána in advance of this weekend when it's upcoming. What we've done with regards to Borough Beach is we work very closely with the NTA. NTA put extra security on at the Dart station, and we have also provided them with bins for the confiscation of drinks. We've also extra bins down at the beach entrances for Garda Síochána, so if they have to confiscate drink, they have somewhere to put it. It does mean that we have staff on overtime over the weekend from the point of view of litter picking and also removing the bins. We work very closely on the traffic management, and we will get extra traffic enforcement in place as well down at the beach. So we work very closely with the Garda Síochána on that. We also put in extra cleaning of the public conveniences. We would normally clean them twice a day. We'll probably increase them to 3. I always deploy additional lifeguards as well when it's coming up to particularly a weekend where there's very hot weather. So listen, we work very closely with Garda Síochána and the NTA, but Garda Síochána do work with the local shops as well from the point of view of encouraging them to ensure that if they are selling alcohol, that they're selling it to people that are the correct age. So we just continue to monitor it, but it is difficult, it is ongoing, but working with the community will help as well.
Okay, that's great. So before we finish, I'd like to clear a couple of items with your permission. The Chief Executive's report is finished. Yes? Okay, can someone answer that question? Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Chair. So basically, persons who approach the Housing Department seeking advice and support in relation to homelessness receive a homeless assessment. So wherever they're coming from, if it's from living at home, direct provision or wherever that may be, so their eligibility is considered. They're given a homeless assessment, and their housing options then are based on their eligibility for housing support insofar as everyone else would be. So it's based on the eligibility. So if somebody from direct provision presents and is assessed, the options for their accommodation needs are explained to them. In many cases, they have alternative accommodation available, and that option is obviously reinforced with them. So there's a process there. There's a process there.
Right. Okay. So right, take it up with the official afterwards. That's my view on it. So thank you. I want to. Yeah. Yes.
Dunsogly. Why are we taking it in charge when it's already taken in charge?
Oh yeah. Right.
What? You send me an email. All right.
Right.
I look forward to that matter.
Yeah, Councillor J.K. Councillor, we're not finished yet. Now, don't go. Councillor J.K., do you want to say something?
Thank you once again, Mayor, and thanks to the Chief Executive. My remark is going to be a general one, and Mayor, I do not intend to beat you to it, but just to thank staff and management of Fingal County Council for the support. I'm conscious of the fact that our next meeting is back in September, but most importantly also to drop in the information about Blanchardstown Library receiving the status of Library of Sanctuary today, and I suppose that is a real big thing for Dublin 15, and you know, reflecting exactly the great work that is going on there and how happy residents are with the services of Fingal County Council in general. So fair play, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, so next is Mayor's business. I'm not moving it, but the officials want me to clear two things. So can we note the conference reports A, B and C at number 22? Noted. Thank you. And can we note the correspondence at 23? A to I. H-I. A to I. Noted. Thank you. Meeting's finished, unless you want to say. Thank you. Councillor Joe Newman, yes? 32. So proposed by yourself. I'll second. I don't know what I'm seconding, but anyway. Local area plan updates. Okay, Grant. Manager's report.